I really love Absolute Batman. I've been in the comic book spaces just kind of lurking for like 2 years now, ever since I got into comics, and I thought, oh, I'll make one big video, you know, I'll put all my thoughts, I'll get into these discussions about these comics, and I overdid it. Alright, so in order to start this video about Absolute Batman, I feel like I should go over some Batman and general comic book context. If you're a comic book fan, you've seen this timeline before, but starting off with Golden Age, this is like 1930s to 1950s. This is when a lot of superheroes are created. Batman especially, he's created during this age. He kind of starts off noir detective, but we quickly move on to Silver Age. This is very goofy Batman. This is 1950s to 1980s. And then we have kind of the Bronze or Modern Age. This is ridiculous. This timeline doesn't work anymore. I hate this. This is, okay, I'm starting off this video with a bold claim. We gotta redo this timeline. It is so bad. Okay, so we have like around 20 years, around 30 years, and we are nearing 50 years in this Bronze Modern Age. This is not the same age. This is not one age. I'm going to make the claim it is actually 3 ages. We are not in the 3rd age of comic books, we are in the 5th, okay? So we're starting off with Bronze Age, okay? This is our 90s angst era. This is like comic book sales decline, so we're trying to make it like, oh, it's for adults now. Then 9/11 happens. 9/11 really affected all American media, and its impact on comic books cannot be like overstated. It is huge. This is what I'm going to call the modern age, okay? This is an age of superheroes having to be realistic and grounded. It was an era where the American public lost hope, okay? And our heroes reflected that. It was a time where heroes could no longer prevent or help with crime. It was only retaliation. The villains won, but then the hero could stop them in the end. It all reflected that feeling of helplessness. And I think Batman especially got pushed really hard during this era. He was already pushed because he could be edgy here, but now he was someone without powers. He could be as helpless as we felt. You know, he could kind of reflect that feeling. But that all changes 2016, okay? 2016 marks a shift, like a very noticeable shift in superhero media back to hope and, you know, kind of optimism. This is what I will call the contemporary age, for a very important reason. Now, the contemporary age in art was done as a way of introspection upon the modern age, and I would say this is the exact same with comic books. This whole era of hopelessness, the contemporary age is a direct response to, and this is where Absolute Batman comes from. This is where the Absolute universe comes from. It is a direct response to the stuff we got in the modern age. Now, I kind of lied. I'm not going to talk about this. I am mainly focusing on the modern and contemporary age in this video. You know, the ones at the very end of the frame that you can barely see. Yeah, those are the important ones, not all of this. Absolute Batman is 100% a response to the modern age of comics, and I'm going to use the Dark Knight trilogy as an example a lot because I think the Dark Knight trilogy really sums up that post 9/11 superhero content and that feeling. It is like the perfect example to point to, where it's not like, I'm not saying this era of superhero media is bad, but I think it is conceptually flawed and it kind of misses the point of superhero media. In my mind, the modern age was a time where people needed hope the most, and superhero media kind of let them down, kind of joined them dwelling in this tragedy. There's a very interesting article on specifically how 9/11 affected comic books that I'll link in the description. But I mean, when we're talking about Batman, I think look no further than Talia al Ghul, Batman's Middle Eastern anti-hero love interest who just became like a super terrorist and lost like all of her characterization. It's weird. It's really weird. We open with young Bruce on a school field trip at the zoo, looking at a sign with a bunch of bat facts remarking how bats are crazy. Bruce's teacher calls him to rejoin the class, and then we get the title card, The Zoo, 1 of 5. The silhouette of a gun against a clear blue sky, immediately setting an unease. Every issue has one of these, and they are masterfully done. We'll talk about them a lot. Then we skip ahead to the modern day. A man on a motorcycle drives through the streets of Gotham.
Hello again, Gotham. It's been a long time. So who are you these days? What have you become while I was gone? You're prettier, I'll give you that. Taller. But deep down something's changed. My third lap round and I still can't find it. Where's your heart? Something's hollowed you out. In fact, I barely recognize you anymore. I'm not sure I like the new you, Gotham. But that's okay. I don't think you can like me much either. My name is Alfred Pennyworth, and I'm here to do some bad things.
Immediately we get some interesting characterization of Gotham that I really like. Gotham isn't some nightmare city filled with criminals. It's a real place that just lost its way. I really like Alfred's introduction here because it really resembles how Bruce would normally be introduced to us. This lone drifter coming back into the city they left so long ago. But this isn't a story about the Prince of Gotham making his fateful return after traveling the world to learn everything he can. Bruce is too poor to travel. Absolute Batman does this a lot, especially in this introduction arc. It's a small misdirect that manages your expectations if you're aware of the mythos. It's showing you that this is something different. It is something new. And if you're not aware of the mythos, it's normal. Like you would never even think about this. We then get a scene characterizing Alfred. He does some bad things as a spy, and he's kind of been hollowed out by his guilt. He's still friends with a man who had to leave his home country due to a conflict Alfred secretly played a role in. He tries to call his estranged daughter Julia, who lives in Gotham, but she doesn't pick up. He then opens his laptop to new orders. He questions why he was taken off of his last assignment, but he's cut off by his handler. He then chastises himself later for questioning orders.
They ring, you serve.
We then see his mission in Gotham, surveillance of a new gang called the Party Animals. Just information gathering, he is not to engage. However, he's told of a third party they've only caught glimpses of that he is to engage, as we see a fuzzy silhouette of Batman gliding between buildings. Alfred receives coordinates and heads to the location only to find his bike has been stolen.
I hate this fucking town.
We then cut to Croc's gym, which is a lone building amidst nothing but wreckage. This whole area is probably being rebuilt, but the owner of the gym won't sell. This is good visual storytelling, and is something I didn't catch until like my 10th read through. It calls back to that idea of Gotham missing its heart. The old being built over and losing something in the process. This is one of those parts where I feel like Absolute Batman is in conversation with Batman history. There is a pattern that I think during the modern age of Batman specifically, Gotham lost its aesthetic. It was no longer a gothic city, but rather just a metropolitan area like a New York, a Chicago. It became very, very general. And we lost the heart of Gotham somewhere along the way, but it's not just Gotham. This is something that's happening everywhere in real life too. And we'll touch back on that idea later. We see a man training, black slicked back hair, muttering to himself, "No fear, no weakness," when a figure approaches him behind and says,
"I think it's my turn."
"Oh, hey, Bruce, sorry, I was just keeping it warm for you. Big day tonight, gotta get in the right headspace. It's brutal out there, you know?"
Don't worry, love is in the air. Now move.
Bruce towers over this guy. He's huge, but he's kind of got a baby face. This is a young Bruce. Bruce immediately starts knocking around the punching bag, flashing to memories of that zoo field trip. Bruce says that the lion living there must live the life, being able to lay around all day while having a steady supply of food. The teacher, Thomas Wayne, retorts by saying the lion's life won't mean much. It won't accomplish anything doing that. Thomas drops it after that and asks Bruce if he's excited for the movie tonight, and then a gunshot rings out. Thomas turns back, a fear in his eye. Nick Dragotta, the artist for this series, is fantastic, so I'm just going to take a moment to appreciate this whole page. It intercuts between the conversation and Bruce hitting this punching bag, and every time Bruce hits the punching bag, we're introducing more and more red into the frames until eventually we lead to the blam at the very end, which serves two purposes. One, it makes that striking red at the bottom not immediately catch your eye, and your eyes don't dart to that part of the page. It also implies this idea that as Bruce is taking out his anger on this punching bag and remembering this, he's only remembering that gunshot. He's just seeing red. I credited Nick Dragotta for the red being introduced into more panels, which I don't really know comic book workflow. I don't know how that works, but I'm guessing I probably should have attributed that to the colorist, since the colors is their job, which I feel really bad about because like Frank Martin, the colorist, is phenomenal throughout this whole thing. I mean, there's so much detail put into the colors, and there's very unique color schemes for different locations. It's something that I didn't notice, but until I was going through and editing this video and I actually had to look at like the colors to see how it was going to work. I mean, the colors in this are so good, and so I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate Frank Martin. I mean, everyone who worked on this book is fantastic. That's a given. But yeah, specifically, I should have attributed the red to Frank Martin, the colorist. Dragotta is also really fantastic at expressions, and this one at the bottom of Thomas really stands out to me. There's no shock, no confusion to this look. He is a teacher in America who just heard a gunshot. There's just dread. Like he always knew this was a possibility. I'm not going to bring up every page that I like because then this video would be a lot longer than it already is, but just know that Nick Dragotta is incredibly talented. We cut back to the gym, Bruce breaking the sandbag open. The owner, Waylon, holding a crocodile and a snake coiled around his neck, walks up, adding up what Bruce owes him. Waylon says he should come to the poker game tonight and he hasn't been in months. Bruce says no. Waylon then asks if he's at least coming to the town hall. Bruce ignores him. Waylon gets annoyed, saying that the whole city is falling apart and that somebody has to do something, while looking at a picture of Bruce's friend group as kids. From left to right, it is Harvey Dent, Two-Face, Edward Nygma, the Riddler, Oz Cobblepot, Penguin, Selina Kyle, Catwoman, Bruce Wayne, and Waylon Jones, Killer Croc. I won't talk too much about that reveal until we get more on their characters, but I think this is a good way to establish very early on that Bruce is an outcast in this society. Most of these villains have also danced the line a bit, and I'd argue that out of all of Batman's rogues, these are some of the most sympathetic. And that also poses an interesting question. Without Bruce Wayne's status as the crowned prince of Gotham, does that just make him another criminal? And if not, why? We then cut to a party yacht, blaring music, where Mr. Falcone and Mr. Maroni meet with the Black Mask, leader of the party animals. The two mob bosses say that Black Mask, Roman, needs to respect the history of their respective families and their reign on Gotham.
Death masks. I collect them. That one is rumored to be Socrates himself. Only two exist in the world. One in Mycenaean gold, and this one made of virgin marble dust. That's Martin Luther to your left, one of a kind, made of beeswax and pine resin. And that's George Washington there, gypsum plaster from Virginia's own quarries. And that there, Mr. Maroni, is your brother. And that's your cousin, Mr. Falcone, and all the rest of them alongside, with two places left just for you. Right, kiddo?
and then orders some lackeys to kill them.
Dr. Benjamin, turn it back up, please.
The old guard of crime is immediately killed off, replaced by this perversion. We're also introduced to Black Mask having this strange obsession with death masks here. Specifically, he shows off in his collection Socrates, Martin Luther, George Washington, as well as multiple members of the Maronis and Falcones. I genuinely didn't know what death masks were going into this. They're usually wax. They're a mold taken of the face, usually used for funeral practices, carving a statue as like artistic reference, or some scientific purpose. It's a neat villain hobby on the surface. I mean, just kind of collecting these things, but I wanted to look deeper. Firstly, the Socrates mask is the first one that Black Mask brings up, and he talks about it as if it's a commodity. He makes sure to mention that there are only two in the world, and he also makes sure to put emphasis on the material it's made out of. The entire idea of somebody having these is a perversion of their purpose. Death masks are functional. They serve a purpose, especially these taken of historical figures. Black Mask holding them here is just another example of someone using their obscene wealth to commodify an art. Its purpose twisted into a status symbol, and it's even worse in this case because it's used as an intimidation tactic. The George Washington mask is also interesting to me because historically speaking, George Washington never had a death mask taken. He had a life mask, which is the exact same thing except it was taken while they were alive. And the one drawn here bears resemblance to the real thing. We can also see all of the masks have these dark, sunken, hollow eyes when death masks usually just have closed eyes. Black Mask is either ignorant or just lying, but either way, it comes across as he's just desperate to look cool. Also, the death masks of the people he's killed are extremely poorly made. I mean, this guy has his mouth wide open, but that's the point. The Falcones and Marones talk about their legacy and their family history, and Black Mask responds by showing the faces of their family, showing that he owns those faces and that they will not be remembered. He doesn't just kill them, he monopolizes the legacy that they cherish so much. Then the city skyline. Bruce puts on his mask. We cross-cut to news footage of the party animals killing indiscriminately, cutting random people apart with machetes. Bruce jumps off the building and glides. At the town hall, Mayor Jim Gordon addresses the public, who are rightfully scared that the party animals could attack them anywhere. Some people in the crowd say they're voting for Hill, which Waylon chimes in to say that Hill is a crook. An onlooker responds that he may be a crook, but at least he's tough. Alfred patrols atop a building nearby, spotting a few party animals heading into City Hall. He reports in, asking to engage to prevent mass casualties. His employer responds with a decisive no, and that he is just to observe. Back at the town hall, somebody screams out that the police can't do a damn thing to stop the party animals. A police officer, Bullock, then grabs their baton. He is luckily stopped by Mayor Gordon before he escalates things. Yikes. A woman stands saying that this is what the party animals want, everybody fighting each other. She says that Jim Gordon is a good man and that the people of Gotham are better than this, and that it's up to everybody to stop these killers, that this is their city, and a flashbang goes off. This speech reads to me as the thesis of Absolute Batman. This idea that our attention is misplaced, people fighting each other on the ground for no reason, good people just trying to help that we blame for things completely out of their control. The idea that it's everybody's job to stop these killers is interesting because I doubt she means physically opposing them and fighting them on the street, but I don't think it really becomes clear what she was implying until much later into the arc, so just keep it in mind. The party animals barge in, opening fire on Mayor Gordon with assault rifles. Gordon falls to the floor. Barbara Gordon, a cop, runs to his side. One of the party animals is taken out by an unseen force. The cops secure a room with everybody in the back of Town Hall as Barbara peeks outside the door. Batman, hanging upside down, tells her,
Whatever you hear, you do not open this door.
We cut back to Alfred as he reports no casualties and that the other player just arrived. His employer reiterates to engage if he disrupts intel gathering. The party animals come back to their senses outside as they see Batman, draped in his cloak, hanging from the ceiling above. They open fire. Batman drops a smoke bomb before dropping on top of them. I'll hold for a moment in case anyone wants to screenshot for their phone wallpaper. So with this fight, we get our first pretty good look at Batman's arsenal. Firstly, the cape just kind of takes on whatever shape it needs to be. He uses it to throw a guy into a building like it's a whip, and then immediately starts walking on it like it's stilts. It kind of reminds me of Batman Begins' explanation about the cape being a cloth that if electricity ran through it, it returned to a set shape, like a memory metal. But while that was scientifically trying to explain away comic book goofiness, trying to make Batman realistic, this takes that idea back and makes it 10 times goofier. I love this so much. At this point, Alfred is fascinated with Batman, gathering data on him exclusively, wondering what Batman can do. Batman takes out the ears of his cowl, revealing knives/batarangs that he then ricochets off of a crowd of party animals before they both hone in on one guy, one knife in each shoulder. The ears being knives are cute, and I really like it as it walks that line for me of explaining an element of the costume without disrespecting it. Batman then pops blades off his arms and starts fist fighting. Alfred comments that Batman's fighting style is his own blend of martial arts.
You're putting on a show. A leg stomped on so everyone hears the crack. An arm snapped over your knee, sending a message. You're enjoying it too. And the knife work. My lord. So bloody yet you miss each artery by just enough. No fatalities at all. Not one. So an idealist. Bloody hell.
Then one party animal steps forward, larger than the rest and brandishing a cleaver, the same weapon he brags was used to chop multiple people up the night before.
This hand has killed more people than you can count. Now I'm gonna give you one chance. Get the fuck out of our way.
Batman silently pulls out a hilt from his utility belt, attaches it to the bat symbol, and then brandishes a newly formed battle axe. The logo was pretty divisive before this moment. People saying that it was too fat and clunky, just saying it was a rectangle, but I think like 90% of the people complaining just shut up after this. Because
I'm gonna give you one chance.
It's amazing. Personally, I love Batman having all these built-in weapons. It's a much more fun take on his contingencies. He isn't ready for every possible situation, which can often feel like plot armor. He's prepared, maybe not for this specific thing, but he's ready to change it up if he needs to. The smoke bombs, how versatile his cape is, it just goes to show how this Batman fights. He's going to fight with everything he has and use every part of him like a weapon. The big party animal charges, and with one stroke of the bat tool axe, the hand that killed countless people is cut off. Alright, so here I feel like I have to explain a literary concept that has kind of just been forgotten after this period of trying to make, especially superhero media, realistic. Suspension of disbelief is your ability to accept things despite knowing that they wouldn't work in the real world. Batman's cape is a good example. We know there's no material that works like this, but we're willing to accept it as the rule of this universe. Many have cited this moment, along with many others, to explain why this Batman doesn't have a no-kill rule. We are told the page before this, Alfred calls him a bloody idealist, as him saying that he doesn't kill anyone here. The comic itself states that he has a no-kill rule here, just a page before this, okay? Sure, this guy would bleed out technically, but he doesn't because the comic doesn't state that, okay? We are working on cartoonish violence. Absolute Batman does not kill people, has not killed people, has not attempted to kill anybody. It doesn't matter if realistically somebody would die from this injury. The comic itself doesn't explain that. It would put emphasis on Batman trying to kill someone because we know he has a no-kill rule. Please, if you are watching this video, stop saying that this Batman doesn't have a no-kill rule. He does. It's stated in the text. It's stated. Oh my god. I'm so tired of it. Batman doesn't kill. This Batman doesn't kill. He can drop an anvil on somebody's head. They're not dead. Because if Batman does it, that means it's not lethal. Okay? That's the rules we're working with. Okay? That's how stories work. If I mention any real-world facts while discussing this comic, it is because the comic itself has not told me the real world rule doesn't apply here, okay? Like, for example, with the George Washington thing, I corrected that it was a life mask, not a death mask. I did that because I think that Black Mask is probably an unreliable narrator, and that I don't think he should be taken at his word.
I hear they can reattach them sometimes. There's a hospital 3 blocks south of here. Or is it east? I can't seem to remember all of a sudden. But I'd run. The rest of you, I'm going to give you one chance to get the fuck out of my way!
The party animals get 2 reaction shots here, and at first they look nearly identical, but if you grab a ruler like I did, you can actually see that their pupils are just a little more dilated in the second one, which is just really neat detail that Nick Dragata didn't have to add, but it really just adds something to me. You can also see there's one party animal who broke eye contact, which I just love details like this. The party animals, scared, start running. Alfred snarkily noted that if Batman were a true tactician, he'd have a trap for those fleeing, and then Batman activates a bomb, sending the party animals flying. I want to quickly make note of the party animals' appearances, because Alfred makes a specific reference saying that they're wearing prom clothes, which at first I read as a just quick jab to their taste in fashion, but that is pretty accurate to what they're wearing. I think it has to do with this idea of prom being one night where you're special. You get to rent out a suit or a dress, and it's this Cinderella-esque fantasy. And then you combine that with one night without any consequence, like The Purge, and you get this weird paradoxical nonsense where they're both special and a notable person, but also completely anonymous. The party animals are a faceless horde of people without consequence, but also special, each living out their own Cinderella fantasy. Completely paradoxical nonsense, but I think if you could, that is an oddly alluring idea. Enough to start a violent gang based on it. Hopefully this is less relatable than I think it is, but I think we've all met someone who genuinely wishes the Purge was real. These people exist and are the exact type of people who would want to be this anonymous main character, who would fall for this. The Big Cleaver guy is so interesting to me because he is so desperate to be cool. I mean, come on, the ripped off arms of the suit, the impractical weapon, the oh so special hand which has killed so many people. But he's just another faceless enemy. And I don't mean faceless in that he's wearing a mask, because if we compare him to Bruce, so is he. So then, what's the difference? Let's analyze this one page in depth where both characters brandish their respective weapons before this duel that will end in less than a page, because 1, I think it helps prove my point, and 2, I just want to gush about how insanely good the composition is here. The visual storytelling in this series comes across really effortless, but a lot of thought went into this stuff, and I want to point that out. We're placed at the eye line of the horde behind him. We know that they aren't any threats, but this guy, he's a little bigger. We're unsure. He might be a threat, and thus he is just a little above where we are. We're looking up at him just ever so slightly. He could be a threat, but at the same time, the image has no backlighting, which creates this effect that there's no depth to the image. He just blends into the background of all these party animals. It's hard to really distinguish him from the crowd. Then our final jab at this big guy is that he doesn't even get a full horizontal panel. We get a small insert of Batman grabbing the hilt, as that demands our attention more than whatever he could be doing. Moving to the next panel, Batman is completely obscured by darkness. He actually has less facial features than the party animals. We only see a pair of eyes. The differences between the two aren't that clear. Batman is also backlit here. We see that he is alone, he is outnumbered, and worst of all, we are viewing him at eye level. Then we get to that final panel. Our view of Batman drops to the floor as he pulls out his weapon. We see the piles of bodies behind him. It is suddenly no question who will win this fight. The difference between these two is clear. One commits to a gimmick in order to stand out, but they never will. They will always be a face in the crowd. And sure, strength in numbers, there's a security in that, but Batman immediately strips away that security. He beat all those people before, he can do it again. Batman is special just for standing for something. His weapon isn't a gimmick, it's the symbol of what he stands for. I can't help but think about the lion at the zoo that was brought up in the earlier conversation between Thomas and Bruce. The being who won't accomplish anything or be all that notable because it's complacent living the easy life, doing nothing of value and being rewarded for it. At this point, Alfred is commanded to engage, so he hops down into the wreckage, pointing a shotgun at the back of Batman's head. Batman is examining a party animal mask as Alfred paints a clear picture of how quickly this shotgun could kill him. Batman kicks him away and takes the shotgun.
Sounds dangerous.
And then he's gone. We cut to the morning as Bruce works his day job, looking over blueprints. Alfred monologues.
The next day, and everyone's talking about it. Who is the Batman? So who are you really, Bruce Wayne? In the 5th grade, you win a student engineering competition, creating a mobile collapsible bridge. The design is origami-like, based on the anatomy of a batwing. And the prize is a trophy, and a trip for your whole class to go to the Gotham Zoo, where it starts.
Bruce places a flower in front of a metal door in the zoo. We cut back to that fateful day. Thomas Wayne immediately jumps into action, leading the children into the bat enclosure and sealing the metal door. His last words. I doubt I have to call attention to it, but in case you missed it, this is the same thing he said to Barbara Gordon at Town Hall. It's a very touching moment for me for a lot of reasons. This era of Batman, this introspection about the character, has been playing with the theme of would Bruce's parents be proud of him? And each different interpretation goes about it in a very interesting way, but Absolute Batman does by far my favorite take of this idea. The Batman 2022 goes about this in an interesting way because there's I think like 2 lines. It compared Thomas, a doctor who saved people's lives in a hospital, to Bruce putting people in a hospital, and asked if that was disrespecting Thomas's memory. Absolute Batman doesn't wince at this idea. It doesn't pose a question about whether or not Bruce's parents would be proud of him. It makes a definitive statement that Batman is the product of Thomas and Martha Wayne, not Joe Chill. Alfred continues.
After that, you lose yourself for a while. Lash out, rage at the world. But then you find yourself again. Something inspires you. You straighten out. You go back to school and get a scholarship to the best university in the state. But when you get there, you're injured in the first week. A soft tissue tear. I've seen the x-rays though. And I've been in command of men who faked injury to escape duty. And I suspect that's exactly what you did. I've seen the x-rays though. And I've been in command of men who faked injury to escape duty. And I suspect that's exactly what you did. But why? You were good enough to be a star, even go pro. Because you were saving your body for last night. For all this, whatever it is you've built.
So Bruce is 6'6", 220 pounds. This also shows he was born in 2004. 2004. Now, for some reason, the Absolute Universe is starting in 2028. Well, I'm not sure why right now. I'm sure once we actually get to 2028 in the real world, it will become clear. I'm guessing it has to do with some overarching plan. But way more importantly than all that, Batman is Gen Z. His detective skills honed by game theory. All those martial arts were probably YouTube tutorials. And I think Batman just makes more sense if he lived through the pandemic. This is my Batman. It is very strange for me having this character that, as I mentioned, has been around for 80 years, reimagined as somebody who was born a year before I was. And it brings with it a lot of implications that is probably most of what I will be talking about in this video. But I have to say right now, like, there is something just special about that to me. And I'm guessing I'm not alone. I think this definitely is a major aspect of why Absolute Batman has been so popular. There is something about having this character that, sure, they've been reimagined before, but it's always been fairly safe, trying to keep it to a mass appeal of generations. I mean, this is a character where I think only a small fraction of the entire world's population hasn't grown up with. That's how long this character has been around for. But in that time, it's become so oddly standardized what this character represents and what it means. So for it to be so specifically for the young people today, dealing with our issues, our problems, I think that's a big part of why Absolute Batman has like entranced me the way it has. We live in a world of like reboots and reimaginings of these same IPs, and there's a lack of originality for sure, but I think more than that, there's just a lack of understanding of what we're going through. This is not the last time I will be saying it, but I do want to say my appreciation for all the artists who put in so much work to make this because of what it means to me. That being Scott Snyder for writing, Nick Dragata for art, Frank Martin for coloring, Clayton Cowles for lettering, and God, I'm forgetting the editors, I'm sorry. Sabrina Futch and Katie Kubert. I had it written down, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. Alfred then looks at the bat sign from the start of the issue. Bats hang upside down, bats walk on their hands. A Batman genuinely inspired by how bats work, with what I would say is a very distinct difference between when he's fighting, you know, in man form with martial arts and when he's fighting in bat form with his cape and stilts. It's really fun to me.
You study applied mechanics, chemistry, criminal psychology, military theory, sociocultural history, everything to prepare.
I do want to go through and compare the degrees that are mentioned here to the main universe counterpart. Now, with it being mainline, a lot of writers have given their take on what degrees Bruce has, and they're not all in agreement, but I think the general things stay the same as basic sciences. Engineering, that's there a lot. Chemistry, that's almost always there. Criminal psychology, that's like a given, that's always there. Military theory, I think that one's new. But sociocultural history, that one's definitely new, and it's an addition that I love. I think a good Batman is always aware that a war on crime is more of a war on the culture and the conditions that create crime. And while I'm not an expert on sociocultural history, and I am taking it at its broad definition, as I don't know what classes Bruce took, but it implies to me a willingness to look outside of Western culture and to look at other cultures and other cultures' histories, which is something I really like. I like the idea that Bruce is thinking outside the box. Genuine change, if we want to make it, we can't really view in the constraints of just the culture we have now. And looking at history of other cultures is a good step in the right direction. It implies that Absolute Batman is trying to make a more humanistic approach, more making the world a better place rather than just punishing criminals, which is something I really appreciate.
And then you come home, you set up in Gotham and work in the power grid. Then the water department, next sanitation. After that, you enter a city hall, studying public policy, macro and micro. Learn your city, the body, the brain, every damn part of Gotham. Until finally you come full circle, ever the engineer, creating, building, even fix what you break, repairing the stairs you blew up last night.
That's a neat bit of lore. I've mentioned Bruce being the Prince of Gotham multiple times now, and whenever that statement is said in a comic book, it's usually followed by a thing saying that his family's blood is the foundation of Gotham. But in the Absolute universe, Bruce has to become one with the city. There's a learning curve here. He isn't born with his blood in the foundation. He actually has to sew it into the foundation through the work that he's doing. Being born without status affects every facet of Bruce's life here. There's also a bit of lore thrown around about how mainline Bruce funds the repairs for what Batman destroyed in Collateral Damage, but here, Bruce is physically repairing it. Bruce's morals are the same, but he can't function within the systems of capitalism to achieve them. Again, he's poor. And sure, engineers make a lot of money, but bat suits aren't cheap. I think this book kind of puts mainline Bruce to shame. Unintentionally, I think, but there's such a stark difference between someone benefiting off of the conditions of their own birth and someone actually working to repair the damage that they caused. Over the last few years, I feel like the argument has been made that Bruce Wayne is a bad person for being rich, and I definitely think there is a certain merit to that argument. I think Bruce Wayne exists as just what rich people should be, probably, but time and time again, we've seen that no rich person is going to be Bruce Wayne. It's up to us.
You've built something, Ibris. I see it now. And it's impressive. Truly. But I've taken down men like you before. All over the world. Because you're crusaders. And crusaders always have a weakness.
The woman from the town hall meeting, Martha Wayne, greets Bruce at the door. Alfred thinks about just killing him right there in front of her. It'd be easy when he gets a text from Julia. Never contact me again.
But you're just a damn kid.
Alright, well, I was recording for like an hour, and the mic was off the whole time. So, apologies if I just sound annoyed during this next part. I am. The reveal that Martha is not only alive, but was the woman at the town hall meeting is really interesting. She's actually wearing her famous pearl necklace at the town hall meeting, in case anyone caught that, because that is really her only character trait in the mainline comics. Anytime we see Bruce's parents, it's Thomas Wayne, philanthropist, heart surgeon, and wife. Bruce is always trying to live up to his parents' memory, but I think it's usually only Thomas that's painted as important to that. I opened up some DC wikis for various Batman adaptations to just compare the difference in article lengths, and it is staggering. Batman 89 is one of the better ones since they're both pretty short. The Dark Knight trilogy is rough. I mean, Nolan and writing women, yikes. But Thomas has a few paragraphs explaining all his various appearances, and then you get to Martha and she has two, one of which is just about the pearl necklace. Side note, this isn't a critique of the wiki articles. I'm very thankful that people curated this information like this so that I can compare it so easily. Whenever Martha does get characterization, it's usually a mental disorder. Although I love this movie, the Batman 2022 does this as well, where it's revealed that she has mental problems, but we're only shown that to characterize Thomas as a loving husband. And then the Flashpoint goes way further than this, to the point of making her the Joker, which is just used to characterize Thomas Wayne's Batman. What the fuck? So suffice to say, Martha's characterization has a long history of, I think, pretty misogynistic stereotypes, and I'm very glad that this comic is giving her a chance in the spotlight. It manages to point out that, weirdly enough, I don't think she ever really mattered that much to Batman origin. Like, she never really had to die for any other reason than Batman being an orphan. And then her characterization in Absolute Batman, we get her speech of saying that people should fight the party animals. It's up to the people of Gotham. And it is clear how this woman raised a vigilante crime fighter. Again, Batman is a result of his parents. And that's something I really love. We then cut to 4 skyscrapers peering above the clouds. Bruce sits in front of his bat computer in one of them. He records himself thinking about the purpose of the masks the party animals wear before he notices something and ends the recording. Alfred enters, commenting on how smart this hideout is. An empty skyscraper that was just made as an investment by a company that never intended to use it for anything. Bruce would know since he worked on them. The city of Gotham is being replaced by identical towers that serve no function or purpose. Corporations now make buildings with the idea that they can be sold or repurposed if needed. Any distinguishing factors then would hurt resale value. It's the same reason why all fast food places look the same now. If it's just a gray box, it can just easily be changed or sold or moved on from. Some people watching may think that that's just good business sense, and while I agree that objectively it is probably very profitable, I ask you, is it worth it? Are people who have enough money just allowed to build over our culture like this? These companies are destroying our cities and towns' individuality in order to save a buck. Our culture is being sacrificed for empty shells, for sale indefinitely. Beat you by one, Hemingway, suck it. Look, what I'm getting at is this. Does enough money give someone the right to destroy our history? Batman steps out of the shadows with the shotgun he took from Alfred. Alfred slyly asks if all those ideals go out the window when he's cornered. Bruce aims the shotgun. Bruce fires.
And then a few things happen very fast. First, I realized the little shit modified my prized shotgun to be non-lethal. Ruined it. Second, I hear that very gun clatter by my side as though he's saying, keep it. Third, I hear this roar. Fourth, his voice as he tells me, you're not the only one who follows people. And lastly, I hear the sound of glass shattering as he rides out the window, 1,000 feet up.
Alfred sits up, his face covered in tiny batarangs from the shotgun. We see that sign from the zoo again. Bats are crazy. Batman on a motorcycle soars through the air with a full moon behind him. I love the bit with the motorcycle here because when Alfred gets the motorcycle stolen at the beginning of this issue, it seems like just classic Gotham City. Guy leaves his bike unattended for 5 seconds and it gets stolen. Damn criminals are everywhere. However, we now know that Bruce, our hero, stole his bike there. It actually recontextualizes so much of the issue because our first look at Gotham, at the criminal element, was our hero. Any black and white worldview we had going into this is immediately challenged. Is Batman evil for stealing this bike? No. So immediately from issue 1, we're primed to understand that this comic is looking at crime as more of a gray area than most superhero media these days usually depicts. That's not to say that this is exactly revolutionary for superhero media or even Batman media. I think any good superhero media should understand that there's a gray area to crime. Hell, superhero media was born out of that gray area. Assault is illegal, but if someone's beating their wife and you have the power to beat the shit out of them, then Superman says you should. Absolute Batman is just a much needed return to form. And that's why it's so important to talk about. Another thing about the bike, I don't think Bruce would steal randomly. That still feels fairly out of character for him, which implies that he knew it's Alfred's bike. More importantly, he knew about Alfred. He even says, you're not the only one that watches people. This whole issue of Alfred looming in the shadows watching Bruce, and the whole time, Bruce knew he was there. He knew about him from the moment he stepped into Gotham. We are locked in Alfred's perspective this issue, and we are told that Bruce is young, naive, and inexperienced. That he needs to grow up, drop this idealistic no-kill rule, that this is all just holding him back. And the ending of this issue just gives us a glimpse of how capable Bruce really is. How he knew everything that was going on. That Alfred is not in the position to talk down to him that he would like to be. And I think that leads to an important theme about Absolute Batman. That I think young people are just often written off as not knowing enough, when that's just not true. Our perspective is just as valid. And we can be just as capable as those older than us. Us being young does not disqualify us from any meaningful discussion. Which is just really nice to see in media, especially superhero media. Alright, I have kind of procrastinated filming some of these clips, and now it's cloudy outside and the lighting kind of sucks. I apologize for that. Overall though, this is such an amazing start to the series, and right out of the gate it promises to be something really special. Batman as a character is someone who's kind of weirdly been split into two over time. We have this goofy Silver Age superhero, and then we have this edgy loner crime fighter, and it has become this weird, just little spectrum where it feels like every Batman is trying to find somewhere in between here. I think over time and with each adaptation, we slowly just lost this goofy Silver Age superhero. We just inched further and further over here. This really got bad with the Bronze and Modern Age. It was just this. This was gone. But then here comes Scott Snyder, who has the job of completely reinventing Batman, to take everything and make something new, which leaves him with this choice: where does this new Batman, where does he fall here? And Scott Snyder makes a very interesting choice, an observation that I would not have thought of. Truly something that nobody would have dared to do. This is closer to the line. Okay? It wraps around. I didn't realize this, but Scott Snyder did, because he realized that if you go too far in one direction, you just loop back. Absolute Batman is so edgy that it just kind of loops back around to being goofy, but it does it completely confidently, so it's not like it's trying to be a joke. Superheroes are supposed to inspire us, and in that way they kind of have to act as role models, people we look up to. They teach us lessons, and with this I think we get the first real lesson Absolute Batman tries to teach us of how we should act. If you do something goofy or kind of cringe, but you just do it with that level of confidence, then it is just kind of awesome. I like people talking about Cringe Mountain whenever they do. This diagram's big. Alright. Cringe Mountain. Starts off over here. You are too scared. Don't want to do things because they are cringe. But then you ascend Cringe Mountain. You get more and more cringe. And then you get just this is very cringe. Just absolute peak. Okay? But then you come down. And eventually, all the shit you were doing that seemed cringe, you realize it's just kind of awesome. It's just kind of rad. It's just kind of sick as hell. Absolute Batman is just a bunch of goofy shit done really well. And it's just awesome. I love this comic so much. Alfred thinks about his old job, the man he followed for 5 years, who trained with Henry Ducard and the League of Assassins before killing them all. 2 pilots start up the helicopter and make small talk. So just sir? Nothing else? No Mr. this or that? Nope, they're all fake anyway. Jack, Arthur, hell, even I don't know his real name. When you're one of the 30 richest men on the planet, you can be whoever you want, I guess. Think you'd want to be my rich, generous best friend? No, don't do that. Why? You didn't hear? This guy never laughs, not at anything, ever. That's why they call him the Joker. Okay, so it got really goofy there. I personally don't like this idea of the Joker being Batman's antithesis of the Joker, oh, it's the world's greatest detective, but the Joker, he's too crazy. He's not even thinking about what he's doing, so Batman can't solve it. It's goofy, and how are you supposed to write that well? It's very clear Absolute Batman is promising to do something different. So, in order to give it a chance, I am completely removing this from the idea of the Joker in my head. This is not the Clown Prince of Crime, okay? This is a character who is wholly new and original, and I will be treating him as such for the time being. This is an adaptation of the Joker more in the way of him being Batman's opposite. I've brought up the Dark Knight movies a few times already, just because I feel like Absolute Batman is really conversing with the ideas there. And I ended up finding this just super strange Polygon article Scott Snyder did, where he talked about his thoughts on the Dark Knight. So for some reason, none of these interviews that I quoted Scott Snyder on, I can find a recording of them. So I will just be doing my reading with Scott Snyder's face on screen. I'm not going to try and do an impression. That just seems like a bad idea. Batman is that figure who is constantly trying to put the city back together, with the city as a construct of order and a civilized life. So as much as Batman's the outlaw, he is a figure of affirmation in that way.
And the Joker is a figure of complete entropy, and I love that relationship there.
Why this interview exists, I truly don't know, but Snyder does talk about how that movie inspired him as a writer, so it ended up being weirdly relevant to exactly what I needed right now. Like, I'm glad this article exists. Was that article just for me? Just for this moment? Now, Gotham and Absolute Batman is far from any construct of order or civilized life. Absolute Batman, in fact, feels kind of like a critique of that very idea. Batman represents that entropy that is supposed to be Joker's. Snyder then goes on to talk about how the Joker is Batman's antithesis. So, what is the antithesis to that entropy, to that chaos that Absolute Batman now represents? A very rich guy. The order itself. In fact, there's a few comments here, like Joker training with the League of Assassins, which draws a direct parallel to mainline Bruce. As I was writing this, concept art actually came out of the Joker with a specific note that he is supposed to resemble mainline Bruce. He is supposed to represent the status and the privilege and the position of mainline Bruce. That is what Absolute Batman is fighting against, which reveals the main theme of this book. We should beat up rich people. The rich are our enemy, and that is clear through this entire first issue, looking back. Black Mask is just another rich guy who is showing off his art collection that he doesn't understand. Gotham itself is being hollowed out by the rich, building these skyscrapers as investments that will never be used, are just there wasting space, and hundreds of people committing atrocities in prom clothes because they so desperately want that power.
Some of you may think it's a little weird that I'm finishing my thoughts on issue number 1 in here, and you'd be right. But before I start talking about capitalism and socioeconomical status, which I need to when talking about the Joker, I want to make it clear where I'm coming from. I am in a very privileged position. I am luckily able to live with my parents. I have very few expenses, and I have enough free time to make shit like this. Yeah, I'm in my garage right now with my not one, but 2 garage fridges. So I say all this knowing that there are a lot of people who have it a lot worse than I do, okay? We're told the Joker is one of the 30 richest men in the world, which is a very specific number because, first off, it's a comic book. No one would bat an eye if they just said he was the richest man in the world. But also, 30 is a weird metric. I've never heard of people ranking the 30 richest men in the world. It's usually top 100 or top 10. 30 is a specific number. So I'm assuming that Joker lies somewhere between 26 to 30, because if it was any higher up, Alfred would have just said he's in the top 25 richest people. Okay. Now, I used the Forbes richest men list in order to see what these numbers were looking like, and at 30 it was 62 billion, and at 26 it was around 70 billion were the net worths. But it got me thinking again, why is he one of the 30 richest men? He could just be number 1. We could just give him Elon Musk's spot. And while I can only hope that he doesn't have Elon Musk's spot because Elon Musk is real in the Absolute universe and Batman's going to beat the shit out of him, I do have to wonder. So I want to do a little, imagination exercise, okay? Just close your eyes, whatever. Imagine you win the lottery and you win $1 billion, okay? I want you to just really think about what would you do with $1 billion right now? Okay, now what if you won $5 billion? It doesn't change that much, does it? I mean, there's nothing you can think of that you could buy with $5 billion that you can't buy with $1 billion. I mean, at that point, the money just seems like semantics, right? But that's exactly the point. Whether or not Joker is number 1 or number 30 on that list doesn't really matter. Joker is part of the 1%. That is the enemy. And he just fits into that category. It doesn't matter where he lies on that list, because that entire list represents the same problem. The bottom of that list has people with more money than they could ever possibly need in their life. They're all the problem. I checked the Forbes top 100 list the other day because I was trying to get this point across to my friend, and I saw that Elon Musk lost $100 billion in like 24 hours. And I mean, at first me and my friend were overjoyed. I mean, Elon Musk, this guy is terrible, and he's doing so much heinous shit all the time. I mean, he made an AI that calls itself Mecha Hitler, but that's the thing. He only lost $100 billion of his $500 billion. He's down to $400 billion. Oh no, he only has $400 billion. A few months ago, that same friend was in the passenger seat of my car, okay? And he rolled down the window. I couldn't stop him until it was too late, because ever since I bought this car, the window buttons have been messed up to the point where the passenger seat window, especially if it rolled down, it was very hard to roll back up. This time really did it in. No matter what I tried, I could not get it back up, and eventually I had to take it into the shop. There turned out to be some other problems, but I got discounts, yada yada, ended up being $1,000, which is still a lot of money for me. It's the same percentage as how much Elon Musk lost. He's allowed to be one of the most degenerate pieces of shit to probably ever walk the earth. And he lost the same amount of money that I did because my friend rolled down my window. I mean, how is this fair? And again, I am in a very fortunate situation. I can't imagine what would have happened if this happened to someone who didn't have $1,000 to spend. It's also important to mention that $1,000 I worked for, like, a lot, and Elon Musk claims to have co-founded Tesla, which is just a lie. He bought it. Like, he bought everything. There's no ingenuity. He just uses the money he inherited to make more money. The system makes no sense. There's no justice to this system. We open with Bruce begging his dad to open the door, peeking through the bullet holes in the metal but unable to see his dad slouched dead just outside. We turn back to see a bat. One of the bullets broke the glass in their enclosure. The entire flock of bats surround Bruce. We get another title page, The Zoo, Part 2 of 5. Another beautiful 2-page spread, a close-up of Bruce surrounded by bats. At first I assumed that this scene was just from Bruce's perspective, but later on we actually get a different character who corroborates this, Bruce being surrounded by bats, which means that Bruce's class probably moved deeper into the enclosure with Bruce staying behind for his dad, which, damn. I also really like Bruce's relationship with bats here. We already had a short mention of this science project that won the field trip to the zoo, which he based off of bat anatomy. And we also see in issue number 1 him being distracted by these bat facts. He's genuinely interested in bats. And now we're getting the fear. Modern Batman lore requires Bruce to both be afraid of bats and inspired by them, which I think is oftentimes pretty clunky. It goes into that idea of him both being a symbol of hope and a symbol of fear. If Batman is born as an intimidation tactic, then as a superhero, him inspiring people, I think is oftentimes can feel forced. Absolute Batman, though, has Batman at its core be an inspiration to Bruce. Batman as an intimidation tactic is secondary to him as a symbol, as an inspiration, which I think works a lot better for superhero media, something that is inherently supposed to inspire people. Next, we find ourselves in an aquarium as Batman fights hordes of party animals, with Alfred explaining that the party animals have increased their offensive on Gotham, but they've been countered by Batman every time they attack, like he knows where they'll be. Alfred then wonders when Bruce will finally retreat, when he'll be in over his head and have to turn back, but he never does. Batman, then, hanging above tens of party animals, drenched in water, drops this ball of highly concentrated vinegar to turn the water into hydrochloric acid. The party animals run out screaming about how much it burns, desperately trying to take off their socks, which is another fun detail, while Alfred chuckles to himself. Alfred claims that Batman is helping him survey the party animals by causing these fights, but we only hear Alfred talking about how cool Batman is, which, I get it, that's what I'm doing right now, but still funny. He talks about how Batman has small stash houses all over the city, caves, he calls them. There are hundreds of little nooks in the city that are able to be made based on the hollow infrastructure of Gotham. Alfred even maps out the places he thinks these caves are, and it's a giant bat symbol. I fucking love this comic. Alfred says that Bruce spends most of his time alone on an extremely tight schedule, working and then Batmaning. Very routine. He breaks from this routine once to visit Joe Chill, his father's killer, in prison, but we don't get to hear this conversation. This is where we really start to see the limitations of Alfred's perspective, but I think the pros really outweigh the cons. It is very interesting seeing Alfred, someone who is very experienced, talk about Bruce. It gives us a look at just how capable Batman is, and I think it works really well at setting up this Batman. This also introduces the idea of Batman as a symbol. Alfred, someone genuinely broken down by the system, but whether he wants to admit it or not, we're starting to see a difference. He is genuinely inspired by Batman. When his handler orders him to drop protections from Batman, Alfred almost fights back. He doesn't, but we're seeing a gradual change. Before, when he was questioning orders, it was out of genuine confusion. He was asking for clarification, and he slipped up. Here, Alfred made a choice to not say the thing. It's baby steps. By watching Batman, Alfred can't help but start to adopt those ideas that he was scoffing at before, that idealism and that urge to fight back. The party animals then find Batman's hideouts in the skyscrapers, the same ones we saw at the end of last issue. So, Batman, backed into a corner with the party animals rushing his base, isn't even there, and he blows up the building. Alfred, who has been describing this idea of war, a dance of victories and defeat, knowing when to give up and when to advance, is taken aback.
Maybe that's what he is. All he is. One long forward advance. Batman AF.
So Batman AF is abbreviated for Batman Advanced Forward, technically. But in reality, it's really Batman as fuck. Scott Snyder said in an interview with Casually Comics that this was the original proposed title of the comic, which of course DC turned down because you can't call a comic Batman as fuck. Scott Snyder decided to work around this though and still name the comic Batman AF, just having it be abbreviated for something different. And he was like absolute, and then couldn't think of something for F, and that's how we got Absolute Batman, which I think is just hilarious. Also, can't move on before bringing up this beautiful panel. Another great phone wallpaper, so this is the last one I'll stop on, I promise. We then cut to the news. We learn that Gordon's opponent in the race for mayor is the former Mayor Hill. Making the timeline, Hill as mayor, then probably lost re-election to Gordon, only to be running for mayor a third time. Former Mayor Hill also gives a small statement about the Batman and his newfound popularity in polls. The news anchor asks Hill a question, and he just goes on this tirade that I will just read in full.
You're looking at it, Justine, meaning it's why I'm running again. Crime is going so bad under Mayor Gordon that people are looking to an actual criminal for help. Think about that. When there's no good left, the choice becomes the lesser of all evils.
I'm bringing attention to this speech specifically because it is such well-written, completely hollow political jargon, And by that I mean Scott Snyder is doing a very good job replicating the word vomit that I feel is very common today. So let's break it down. I'm going to give my very simple guide on how to use simple logic to spot bullshit, and while we'll get to better speakers later on, Hill is our good beginner's course for these concepts. He calls Batman a criminal, and then almost immediately the news anchor brings up his own criminal charges. Criminal becomes a buzzword, nothing more than a way to label undesirables. People Hill wants to discredit without having to actually provide reason, so he just calls them a criminal, something with a negative association. Hill also uses this idea, the lesser of all evils, and while he's using it to compare Batman and Gordon, saying of course people would like Batman more because Gordon is allowing the party animals, Batman is the lesser of all evils. It is clear how easily Hill can slot into this ranking system. Hill asks not that you judge him by any reasonable metric, but rather, how does he compare to Gordon, which he has now associated to the party animals? So really he's asking, okay, not am I a good person, but am I better than a mass murdering gang? He's lowering the bar. If someone can't explain why they're right and only why somebody else is more wrong, most likely bullshit. Gordon asks Bullock to turn off the TV. Bullock then says he put in an order for more guns for the police force. Gordon questioning him, saying how they both know more guns won't mean more winning. Bullock then slips, saying they need to stop him, singular, which then causes him and Barbara to get into a small argument about whether or not Batman can be trusted. Bullock suggests he could be the party animal's secret ally, but Barbara responds by asking why would he call in so many tips. Bullock is so well characterized here because I fucking hate him. Also, have never seen a more cop-looking cop in my life, so this is amazing character design. I mean, I live in a small town. I've seen every cop here, and I swear to God, it's indistinguishable. Now, while the dynamic that Bullock wants to take down the Batman isn't anything particularly new, I think Absolute Batman goes about it in an interesting way because Bullock seems so much more focused on Batman than he is the party animals. Why? Bullock could have this problem with Batman for multiple reasons, but I think the most obvious is the sudden pull Batman has with the public. The narrative is no longer the police and their war on crime because we have this morally gray area. We've already seen that Bullock has a very volatile reaction to any anti-police sentiment, immediately going towards possible violence. And the idea of a third group outside of cops and robbers threatens the police as an institution. Okay, so this is the binary system of law I was talking about. You either fall into good or evil. That is very misleading and not how the law actually works because you see, there are four groups. What? What? All right, let me break down this graph. So in this first box, we have the cops, okay? They are the ones who enforce the law and they are the good guys, okay? Then we have the chaotic good. This is vigilantes, people taking justice into their own hands, but also people stealing food for their families. Like, there are plenty of things that we as a society see as a public good, while the law doesn't. These are chaotic behaviors, okay? Then we move on to the evil column. Lawful evil. This is black mass. People like the Maronis and the Falcones. They are integral parts of the system despite breaking the law at every chance. The law just doesn't really apply to them. That's a whole thing. Evil, chaotic, this is like violent criminals, okay? The entire narrative of cops is the lawful good cops against the chaotic evil criminals, okay? However, we can obviously see that there are these two, like, in-betweens, I guess? I don't know. Which leads me to my main point. This makes no sense, okay?
this whole good versus evil dynamic doesn't really work. Because if the cops aren't punishing the evil, if they aren't punishing Black Mass, then what's the point? They are punishing this. So that means that, yeah, this line just doesn't exist, really. These are the two sides, you know? And it isn't good versus evil that the law cares about. It is lawful versus chaotic behavior. Why am I pointing with this? I have this stick. God, it is lawful versus chaotic behavior that the law cares about. It is the system itself, and it punishes the people who do not fit into that system. Scott Snyder has said in multiple interviews that he relates to the older characters in Absolute Batman more, specifically Thomas and Alfred. He mentions a lot. It's one of the reasons this book is mostly written from Alfred's perspective. I have an oddly hard time analyzing this conversation because it just kind of hits me. I was born in 2005, and this feeling of what is this world we've been given is so prevalent to my life right now, and I'm guessing most of my peers can say the same. It's just confusing. And seeing characters that represent an older generation not only admit that and say that they messed up somewhere, but also this idea that we'll have to be crazier than they ever were. There has been this idea a lot of a lack of originality in our media. I mean, we are just dealt constant remakes and reimaginings, and Absolute Batman should be no different. It is Batman again. But I don't know, it's still art that feels relevant to me in my life. It's not something I get to see that often. Maybe it has to deal with this lack of originality, but everything just feels like it plays it safe lately to play to the biggest general audience it can. But this is a Batman specifically for Gen Z, for me. And this is a conversation for me. It's so direct in a way that I'm just not used to seeing in my media. I don't know, that means something to me. Martha then mentions how Thomas would have liked Batman, which is an inclusion I just love. Batman's parents being proud of him is an inclusion that I never knew I needed until Absolute Batman. They then talk about how Gordon's entire mayoral run. I'm just not going to say that word correctly. This is like the fourth take I've done. Mayoral. God. Okay. I'm skipping it. They then talk about how Gordon's entire run as mayor was a pipe dream, but pipe dreams are good. It adds to this idea of kind of taking risks, taking long shots, needing to be crazy in order to make actual change. Gordon then talks about finding Bruce in the bat exhibit that day, corroborating his story. Bruce covered in bats, screaming. And we also get an insert that says bats can be social or solitary. These inserts appear in each issue of this arc, and they are a really effective storytelling tool of talking about Bruce's nature as a person. And it's one of those things where when Absolute Batman is confronted with what is Bruce's true nature, is he a loner or is he a family man? Absolute Batman answers without hesitation, yes. Gordon asks how Bruce is, and Martha says she feels like she barely knows him at all. Then a flashback to Bruce crying in his room. His mom tries to get him to hang out with his friends outside, but Bruce just stares at his first place medal for the science fair. It's hard to tell how long it has been since the zoo in this panel because Bruce isn't noticeably different here, but we can see that this is the start of Bruce's isolation and guilt about the whole incident. He does feel somewhat at fault for even winning the science fair and going to the zoo that day. More than any of that, though, I'm interested in this panel of Bruce's friend group hanging out outside because it seems really ordinary to me. I mean, they are just hanging out, fine. We learn later that they were at the zoo that day. They experienced this traumatic event, same as Bruce. They lost their teacher. Hell, Martha seems barely affected here. And while we could assume that everyone has moved on, it has been months after the fact, that feels strange with the conversation Martha and Gordon were just having. Gordon was talking about the incident itself, and Martha said right after the incident, Bruce started to close himself off. If we're flashing back to any moment, I think this is pretty soon after the incident. So why is Bruce the only one that seems affected? Let's assume Bruce is in 5th grade here and is about 10, just from looks alone. In 2014, there were 35 school shootings and 271 mass shootings in America. Just in 2014. Gotham City is not mourning their honorary king and queen. It's just another victim of gun violence in America, another dot on a graph. Nobody is really allowed to mourn. Martha isn't fine here, but what else is she supposed to do? She's a single mother now. She can't break down. These kids that grew up in Crime Alley have to just move on too. No one is giving them any sympathy. All we give kids who have been through mass shootings is just no kid should ever have to go through that. And it feels like by the time we're done saying it, there's another school shooting. This scene breaks my heart. Bruce is sitting here alone, bawling his eyes out, while it would feel like the whole world is moving on without him. Like his dad didn't even matter. People talk about how unhinged this Batman is, but genuinely, what happens when these hundreds, if not thousands of victims of gun violence grow up? This is not an accidental pulling of the trigger during a robbery gone wrong, or in some adaptations, a hit put out on someone of importance. It is an act of incomprehensible violence for no reason. This is an evil born of problems that go so deep into our society and culture that seem near impossible to fully unpack. This is how we get Batman in the modern day. Now we find ourselves at a poker table. Bruce walks in as Ed, Oz, Harvey, and Waylon all make sure that attention is brought to how rare of an occasion this is, poking fun at Bruce. Waylon goes to take a picture, but Harvey stops him, not wanting any evidence that he was here. Oz calls him a two-face. Scott Snyder's not a subtle writer, and we love him for it. I think most people watching this know who Two-Face is. We don't need to put up with any false pretenses to get there. We then get a full conversation between these guys as Bruce asks them all their opinion on the black skull mask he took last issue, which he has been using to track the party animals' next targets, which is how Batman always shows up wherever they're going. This scene also establishes all of their characters really efficiently and really well, so this is kind of going to be rapid fire character analysis. First we got Ed, who seems pretty much disinterested from the politics and dynamics of this group, and rather just chiming in with the occasional fun fact, which, while could read as him trying to prove that he's smarter than everyone here, the group's reaction to it make it seem like this is normal and they don't get mad at him for it, which leads me to believe that it is more a lack of social awareness. This is how he genuinely connects to people. He's just info dumping, which is more than enough for me to headcanon that he's autistic. I looked into it a little bit to see if Scott Snyder has said anything about whether or not Absolute Riddler's autistic, because this wouldn't be the first time he's revealed that an Absolute comic character is autistic in an interview. But I only found a very polarizing comment section about whether or not mainline Riddler's autistic. So headcanon is true until proven otherwise. As a Riddler adaptation, I think it's very hard to see how this character would turn into one of Batman's rogues at this point, so we will see. Importantly though, he points out that the circuitry in the mask is very premier, which implies expensive, which I find interesting given just how many masks it seems like are out there and how seemingly disposable the party animals are.
Wayland just seems to be a really cool guy. We still haven't seen a lot on him, but we can tell that he is the one holding this group together. We even have mention of him trying to reach Selena for the poker nights, even though she's completely MIA and probably in a different country. He's very passionate as a person and is oddly the one with the most and least resemblance to his mainline counterpart, because very easily we could make the argument that this is what Killer Croc would be like if he didn't happen to look like a crocodile. Oz is very obviously different from his mainline counterpart, being very lean and muscular, but he's also the most obviously criminal, describing his business dealings as atypical. He's also very defensive. At one point, Bruce says his name for his turn in poker while talking about the party animals, and he immediately assumes that Bruce is accusing him of knowing something about the party animals, which he immediately snaps at before revealing that he does actually know a little bit about the party animals. He says that the party animals are just chaotic. They're just destroying things without reason. They aren't going for any territory in Gotham. Oz might genuinely be my favorite of this group. His defensive nature doesn't feel like he's scared of getting his illegal businesses caught, but genuinely he's scared of judgment from his friends, which it really makes me wonder what Oz went through to develop this insecurity, because it doesn't seem like any of these people would judge him. I also have no idea how he's going to work as an adaptation of the Penguin, since he really strikes me as someone who is willing to do stuff just to get by rather than aspirations of becoming a crime lord. Finally, Harvey, and Two-Face is an accurate nickname. He's working for the DA office while these poker games are his guilty pleasure. He walks this weird line of knowing about the dirty side of politics, but he doesn't want to hear about anyone else's criminal doing. It's said he forges things for the DA, but he can't be seen playing poker. It's clear he's trying to kind of play both sides, and he's barely holding it together. These self-imposed rules don't make any sense. I really like this as an adaptation of Two-Face. This split doesn't come from pre-existing mental issues. It's directly from him being an outcast in this society. He's forced to play these two roles to fit in. I'm assuming he's trying to escape poverty, escape crime alley, hoping that being a lawyer will get him out. But in order to do that, he's expected to leave everything behind, leave behind all his friends in crime alley, which he's not willing to do. I think it's clear where an eventual break might come from, what pushes him to be Two-Face. And in that way, I think out of all of Bruce's friends, he's the most obvious for how I think he could eventually become a member of Batman's Rogues Gallery. But again, I feel like Absolute Batman's going to surprise me. So, I don't know. Bruce asks Harvey if the party animals might have any political motivations, since Harvey is tapped into that side of things. But Harvey says Gordon was going to lose the election anyways. He didn't have much of a chance. There's no reason the party animals had to put that final nail in the coffin. He does, however, say that there could be one thing that they're after, something more important than power: money. Now that we've gotten a look at all of Bruce's friend group, I want to make a point talking about the theories I've seen on how these people become more like their mainline counterparts. And guys, I think it's really important. These characters are so well characterized. Like, we really have to look into who these people are and who we're told they are. I've seen people just say it's like, oh, Harvey's gonna have two heads because it's the absolute universe. Like, what? Why would, like, maybe, but like, that's not like a reason for him being a villain. Why would they set all this up if he's just gonna be crazy because he's like Doduo? I don't think any of these characters are just going to snap and become a villain. We are being treated to very well done characterization, and these characters have motivations and reasoning, and if we're going to talk about and theorize about these characters becoming villains, then
we really have to think about how they're characterized, who these people are, because they're characterized so well. And there's a reason they are being characterized like this. Whatever they end up becoming, we have the groundwork here. This isn't just going to come out of left field and they're going to go insane because of some accident. Absolute Batman clearly has bigger aspirations than that. The scene ends with Bruce playing his hand, saying it's better if they're playing with jokers. Harvey retorts, "Jokers are never welcome here." I'm going to say it. Take a point away from Scott Snyder. We then get Batman breaking into Hill's campaign office as Harvey describes how Hill has some secret source of money that has been very lucrative. Hill calls it his golden chest. Batman enters stealth mode as he wraps his cape around him like a scarf, which, that's awesome. Batman hacks into some files looking for this golden chest when he finds a folder labeled Arkham. Arkham. Cute. Alright, give Scott Snyder his point back. Oddly enough, I think this wordplay is one of the most clever parts of this whole comic. I mean, Golden Chest, Arkham. How do you come up with this? Genuinely. It's too good. Also important to mention that to get Arkham from Arkham, you take out the ha, as in ha ha ha, which we later learn there is an association with the Joker. Which, if that's intentional, that can't be intentional, right? Oh God, I love this so much. It's how'd they come up with this? Arkham. Black Mask appears across numerous TVs lining the wall in front of Batman, saying that he likes Batman. He's his kind of party, but that the whole GCPD has the building surrounded, with party animals rushing into the building as well. Important to note that when Batman calls in anonymous tips, 1 or 2 cop cars show up, but when Black Mask calls in something, it seems like the entire force is here. Black Mask falls into that lawful category we talked about earlier, so the police serve him. Batman jumps down an elevator shaft as Alfred ambushes him, offering his help and some information about the party animals. Bruce reluctantly agrees. Alfred offers him a ride in his car hidden in the back alley, unless Bruce already has a ride.
You're standing in it.
Okay, so the Batmobile is a bulldozer. Why? Scott Snyder likes what he likes. At a certain point, you just gotta respect it. It's awesome. That's why. Hell yeah, bulldozer. There's actually a really good explanation for why Bruce has a bulldozer, but it is in Batman Annual #1, which will unfortunately be a different video because there's a lot to unpack with that one. Sorry. Subscribe. The issue ends with another flashback as Selina sits in Bruce's window, holding the first place medal. We open with Bruce and Selina running across the rooftops. Bruce is hesitant to pull off some of the crazier moves Selina is suggesting, but Selina says he needs to look ahead, cat style. We then get the 2-page title card, The Zoo, Part 3. The lion, large and silhouetted, looking at Gordon running with Bruce in his arms. In issue 1, Bruce had this moment of talking to his father about the lion, with Thomas saying that the lion would never accomplish much, given that it's just given everything all the time. I'd like to think that this is a play on the idea of don't bite the hand that feeds. The lion is complacency. People who won't make a fuss even when they're given the bare minimum. Some people even when they're given less. The lion is just watching. It didn't do anything when a lone gunman wandered into the zoo. I mean, it could have hypothetically stopped the entire tragedy, but it didn't because it wouldn't want to disrupt the order that has given it this life of safety. The lion probably didn't think about all of that when it made its decision, but still, we're talking symbolically. It reads to me as that pride that people who choose to be uninvolved seem to have. This pride of not making a fuss, of not complaining, of not biting the hand that feeds. But this is a very sad panel. It's someone so far away, not doing anything, standing proudly over a boy who just lost his father. The page before this was talking about cat eyes, this idea of seeing what's right in front of you. And for those not in the know, lions are cats. Now this is where we get into an interesting part of media analysis, something I'll get into a lot more with issue number 5, because I doubt a correlation was meant here. Selina Kyle is Catwoman. That is probably where cat eyes came from, and I think this lion is supposed to represent pride. And I think you could make a correlation of how being complacent, not biting the hand that feeds, is a temporary guarantee. That could always just fall through. I think that idea makes the story better, even though I doubt it was intended by the author. But it's there. You can make that connection. And if the story's better for it, why should I care if the author didn't mean it? Of course, there is also the chance that that is intended, that is the intended reading, in which case I'm just saying what the author wanted me to say, which is great. I did a good job. Thanks, Scott. We're not on first name basis, I'm sorry. We're then back to right where we left off with issue 2. The Batmobile charging through barricades of police cars as Alfred thinks about the life of stealth he's created over the past 40 years, all the identities he's crafted, and now he's here, barreling down Broadway in a bulldozer.
I may actually hate Batman.
Alfred then starts trying to explain himself, telling Bruce about the Black Mask, a figure who works for some of the most powerful people in the world to destabilize local governments using violent means, who Alfred assumes is the head of the party animals. At this point, the party animals have almost fully caught up to them. Alfred says they need a faster vehicle. Bruce then presses a button that activates a bunch of hydraulics, turning the car into more of a standard Batmobile, except like 10 times as big.
I may actually love Batman.
Just gonna leave this panel on screen for a second to really get a sense of scale. Again, I can't help but compare to the Dark Knight trilogy, which had the Batmobile being a tank. Once again, taking that idea and just dialing it up to 11, making it goofy again. Batman then activates some thrusters as Alfred gets into a compartment in the back with a turret. Alfred starts shooting as these little bats with electric charges all come flying out. I love this comic so much. Alfred continues his warning, saying that Black Mask has endless resources. He's too big to fight. Bruce responds that he'll build even bigger then. Alfred thinks to himself that there's no way to build that big. Black Mask has infinite resources. Alfred then suggests he meets Black Mask to compromise, take a bunch of money to build Batman into something really big, and have Black Mask scale down his attacks on Gotham. Alfred ends it with,
You get to be the hero.
By quitting, forget it.
By being a fucking grown-up.
I love Alfred and Batman's dynamic so much because it's a subversion of, I don't want to say a trope because it's treated as though it's so much more ancient than that. The mentor figure is really standard in most stories, extremely popularized by the hero's journey, which for better or worse has been used as a narrative template for so many years now, which really hinges on this relationship between the inexperienced hero and the experienced master. Absolute Batman makes this relationship feel a lot more human, in my opinion. Bruce does not want a mentor, and Alfred is learning a lot more from Batman than he's teaching. Experience doesn't mean you're right. In fact, looking at the world right now, advice from old people doesn't really mean shit. I mean, look where it got us. Bruce's journey in the zoo boils down to, will he compromise on his mission, on any part of it? And Bruce's and Alfred's relationship shows this really well. This whole conversation is Alfred trying to make Bruce accept the world as it is, and Bruce's sheer stubbornness in the face of insurmountable odds. But as this friendship grows and as they get closer, one of them has to be wrong. And it creates this
battle of wills between the old and the new. Finally, the entire police force catches up to the Batmobile. They're cornered, backed against the water surrounding Gotham.
We make a pretty decent team, kid. Tell me you have something to get us out of this one, and let's keep it going.
Alfred ejects out as Bruce drives right into the ocean and into a pipe on the bottom of the sea, leading to one of his caves. We cut back to Bruce and Selina on the rooftops, going to this horde of cats that all just love Selina, as we learn that Selina is in the foster care system, and it isn't going well for her. She's been in 4 foster homes. She explains that in good cases, people just like the idea of a foster kid, but not the real thing, and that her last home was a bad case, but doesn't elaborate on what that means. Bruce offers to let Selina stay with them, but she shuts down that idea pretty fast. Then Selina changes the subject to something happy, saying that the lion from the zoo got transferred to Tanzania, where it can be free. Bruce asks why that's happy, and Selina scoffs. Selina then leads Bruce into a movie theater as Zorro illuminates the screen. We then cut back to present day as Ed introduces Bruce to his newest creation. He hasn't named it yet, but he's between Al, since it's a play on AI, or something to do with riddles, like Riddle Man. Bruce is annoyed, having wanted to talk to Ed about the party animal masks, but Ed responds that the robot is him, containing 3/5 of all of humanity's knowledge. Bruce reluctantly asks the robot how the masks work. To everyone watching, remember, Batman doesn't like to use AI, and neither should you. The robot responds saying that apparently the mask has 3 functions. First, conceal the wearer's identity from all means of deciphering, complete anonymity. Second, it has a wallet for cryptocurrency called Black Coin. And third, it shows objectives you can complete, arson, robbery, murder, etc. For these objectives, you can earn Black Coin, apparently hundreds of thousands of dollars worth. The robot notes that someone could get very rich very fast. The mention of cryptocurrency here is really great at establishing where Black Mask lies in the hierarchy of this world. Now, the Joker could destabilize an entire economy if he wanted to. I mean, he just has that amount of money. He could rampantly increase inflation wherever, just on a whim. Think the 2008 housing crisis. It served the wealthy to just plunge the world into a depression, and so they did. The Joker would be able to pay someone a blank check, an absurd amount of money without making a dent in his bank account. And then he could devalue the currency, so he basically paid them nothing. But now they're reliant on the money he gives them, which just makes indentured servitude. Now that puts Black Mask in a weird position because he can't do that. But he needs to control people with money. But he doesn't have the same control over money itself. There are outside forces, unpredictabilities, outside variables. He can't plan completely. So what does he do? He makes a cryptocurrency, one that he has complete control over. Sure, you could get very rich very fast, but I hope everyone watching has seen the pattern with cryptocurrencies in the past few years. You are playing a game where the rules are specifically made to screw you over. Bruce asks how he could go about destroying the network, but the robot says there are too many servers all around the world with thousands of members. Ed tells Bruce to just forget it, destroy the mask, then going on to say that sometimes he sees too much information, making friendship hard for him, which is why he values Bruce so much. This is so autistic coded, but I can't find if Scott Snyder said anything, because there's a separate Scott Snyder who runs an autism organization, which is so specifically frustrating for me right now. Also, the autism organization, it looks like their mission statement is like providing help until they can find a cure, which, gross. Ed makes a last plea for Bruce to stop as Bruce ignores him to pick up a call from Harvey. Harvey looked into Arkham a bit more. It's funded by JK Holdings. Harvey goes on to say that they're private prisons, black sites, with investments from biotech, big pharma, genomic sites, basically all the science companies. Very shady. Then we cut to a yacht docked at the Gotham harbor. Former Mayor Hill greets Commissioner Bullock. Bullock makes it clear that he won't endorse Hill. He's just here because Hill said he can help the department. Hill emphasizes that he's not there to steal Bullock from old Jimmy, just wants to introduce him to a friend that can help the department. Mr. Roman Sionis. Roman squares off against a man double his size, Bibbo Bibowski, former champ. Bullock asks what the mask is for, and Roman responds,
Oh, it's just for anonymity, Commissioner. I have a lot of enemies in my line of work. I'm a professional pacifist. By pacifist, I mean I help bring peace to troubled areas around the world. Good places being taken advantage of by bad people. And your city, it could use some peace these days. Under your boss, Jim Gordon, some very bad people. They're tearing Gotham apart. Never. Jim Gordon is a good man. We all agree. And you two are core together, I get it. That's a real bond. But the fact is, the party animals are fucking degenerates. Young, godless, believing in nothing. They're filth. And they're growing in number. Between them and this Batman, you have to get things under control now, or it'll all fall apart fast. Hearts and minds, soft laws. You know what that leads to. Bingo. I've seen it happen in cities all over the world. Hell, I grew up in one. Now I hear you requested 4 RVs and 1 air. My people can get you 10, and plenty of choppers. All through state channels, all above board. So how about it? What do you say?
Roman puts Bibbo in a stranglehold. Bibbo desperately tries to tap out as Bullock goes to intervene, but it's too late.
No, don't worry about him, Commissioner. He'll be fine. Now come. Let's talk about peace.
This scene is perfect. I mean, everything about it. Firstly, Hill is just kind of standing in the background at all times, and the composition makes it so you're always just kind of aware of his presence. Like, he's always just there, just in this slouched position, like he's making himself smaller. And the walls are so blank that, I mean, he just kind of stands out. It's uncomfortable. In case anyone didn't already assume this, we can tell that Hill is just Roman's puppet. Also, Roman's speech itself is filled with so many paradoxes and so much irony. He talks about good places being taken advantage of while he is actively killing Bibbo Babowski, someone who we're told is notably from the suicide slums, a heroic figure to an obviously troubled place based off the name, and he kills him just because he wants to wrestle a little. We also learn later, Bibbo is a boxer, not a wrestler. And he fights like it too. He only throws punches as Roman crawls around him like a spider monkey, twisting limbs. It's an obviously unfair fight. Another part I love is him talking about Jim Gordon. He talks about how no one is disrespecting Jimmy, which him calling him Jimmy is disrespectful. He is still Mayor Gordon, but he undermines him. Also, this idea of feigning respect for someone is very common with these types of people. It hinges on this idea that just being a good person isn't enough to be a good political leader. I mean, it implies that some people are just incompetent and some people are just better at certain things than other people, which, while true, it's often cited like they're born better at this, when that isn't true. Anyone can learn a skill. Anyone can become better at something. Let's trust their judgment more than anything else. Roman makes sure to mention that all party animals are filth, which, while we know that he's leader of the party animals, Bullock doesn't. Bullock has no idea there's any association, despite the obviously similar masks. So what a detective he is. We see Roman is clearly intelligent. He wouldn't have to mention to Bullock that he thinks the party animals are filth to prove his innocence. That is Bullock's assumption, that this person is innocent. So the reason for saying this ends up being him just saying an obviously true statement. Him saying something for Bullock to think, oh, we're on the same side. He just wants Bullock to agree with him. And once Bullock does agree, he starts pushing more. He tells Bullock exactly what he wants to hear, so he can push him further and further down this rabbit hole, down the path to violence. He tells Bullock that Gotham City is coming apart and we need to act now. He validates Bullock's immediate reaction being violence. He asks Bullock if he knows what Gotham City is going towards, if he knows what this is all leading towards, and Bullock responds, war. I'm not trying to say that Bullock is like a good person. I feel like we've seen enough to show that I
really don't think he is. But we're seeing that Black Mask is clearly manipulating him to buy into his worst instincts. At this point, Bullock has completely bought into this. He is so scared of the problem that he is willing to look to Roman, who is wearing a obviously similar mask to the party animals, because Roman claims to have the solution. Bullock got turned to this extreme so easily because we've seen he's scared and he's quick to violence. Bullock was never walking out of here not on their side, despite killing his hero in front of him. That's just what fear and hate does to people. Also, we get another instance of redefining words, like how Hill redefined criminal. This time Roman redefines peace, a word with an obvious positive connotation, but he just uses it in the opposite way. But peace is a good word, so Bullock just agrees with it, even though that's obviously not what peace means. This is a shockingly common tactic because it works. It disguises heinous ideas with just words people like. It also overcomplicates the conversation itself because now we're putting up with redefining words. We have to keep up with this new vocabulary we're inventing on the spot. We then cut to Bruce setting up a telescope to see off the shore of Gotham, to see Arc M. Alfred gives some context. Arc A was the first in Santa Prisca, and then Arc B in Russia, Arc C in China, and now Arc M, the biggest yet, just outside of Gotham. As an American, there's a strange feeling reading this because as other developed nations are being listed off as having super prisons, it just feels plausible with what I've been taught. Russia, yeah. China, yeah. Is Santa Prisca even a real place? I wrote that as like an Americans don't know geography joke, and it's not a real place. I thought it was. American history is filled with us stopping the crimes of other nations doing this, building black sites, and we put a stop to it all. It's American exceptionalism. America is special for... So that's why I read this comic about the rich building a black site just off the shore in America to put undesirables, and I don't buy it. That can't happen here. They would never do that here. This is America. The American government would never put a black site just off the shore to put undesirables. How could you, Scott Snyder? Ugh. We then cut back to Bruce and Selena as Selena asks if Bruce remembers him and his dad talking about the lion again. She compares Bruce to the lion, saying that he has the chance to use his talents to do something really special. Yes, it's scary, but just go straight at it. Cat eyes. It's interesting to have these pages back to back. Bruce looking in the distance at Arc M being built, this insurmountable threat just on the horizon, and then Bruce in the theater learning to live in the moment. It's kind of consequences and then the actions. We see Bruce develop this potential flaw. Perhaps he's too in the moment. It's one battle after another without seeing the big picture, but I can't help but think maybe that's his greatest strength, to not overthink this and just do the right thing. But it's hard to think that way when we see Arc M right there, the big picture itself. Bruce goes to leave the theaters, but all his friends pop out and push him to his seat. Bruce smiles as they all surround him and watch the movie. We then see Martha sat at the back of the theater looking at the screen. I didn't bring it up at the time, but in issue 1, Thomas mentioned going to see a movie that night, the movie Thomas and Martha met at, which, assuming that was a red herring, and the idea was they go to that theater, they get mugged, classic Batman origin, which most adaptations have. They went to see a showing of Zorro, which to me implies that Thomas and Martha met at a screening of Zorro. There's something so haunting about this panel to me. I mean, we get Bruce with his friends watching this movie, and then Martha just alone. And the panel makes sure to show us just how isolated she is, surrounded by these empty seats. She's probably the one that set this up for Bruce. And this is the only time we really see her grieve.
It took me multiple reads to even see it, but she is crying. There is a single tear as she's looking at the screen, and that breaks me. Speaking of Martha, in the present day, Martha gets ready for work as she's suddenly surprised by Bruce, who is at the kitchen counter eating soup at 8 a.m. Martha asks what's wrong for him to come by, and Bruce pleads with Martha to lie low for a while with all of this chaos. Martha says she can't, as she's now Gordon's deputy mayor. Bruce gets mad, saying she's just putting a target on herself, and asks if it's too big to fight. Martha says, "You keep fighting. It's who she is, and it's who Bruce's father was." Bruce snaps back, saying, "Look how it turned out for him." Martha calmly diffuses and leaves for work as Bruce is left alone at the counter. Side note again that Martha's wearing her pearl necklace, which is something I like a lot more in the Absolute universe, because normally it feels so weird how often she's just wearing the same pearl necklace. And I mean, it goes into that just being her only characterization. That's her only defining quality, is that pearl necklace. But here, I think this is just Martha's only piece of jewelry. After seeing some great parenting, we then get Alfred watching his estranged daughter from afar and driving off when she gets too close. Real class act. Alfred does this while thinking to himself about how no matter how skilled or brave Bruce is, he won't be able to save the city. He has to accept their conditions. Then we get former Mayor Hill making a speech saying that Gordon's vision failed this city, and then announces that he has the endorsement of Commissioner Bullock. Finally, he announces a proposition to not turn on the memorial light marking the anniversary of the zoo shooting this year, calling it a mockery while the streets run with blood. Again, his whole campaign is just bad-mouthing Gordon, but more importantly, the memorial. Memorials like that serve as a reminder of what was lost, but people who actively profit off of those tragedies don't want you to remember. This seems like a cartoonishly villainous move, and it is, but it happens in real life. Just in May, a memorial to gun violence victims was removed in the ATF building. The people responsible for the conditions that create those tragedies, that make it so easy for those to happen, don't want you to remember those tragedies. They don't want to be held responsible for them. Violence serves these people and their motives, but it is only beneficial to them if it exists as this omnipresent evil that could strike at any moment, but it's not real. When we remember the actual victims of these tragedies, then the tragedies are less likely to happen. That evil is less likely to happen again, and they don't want that. They want these tragedies to happen, so they take down the memorials for the people lost in them. Now, I've already talked a lot in this video about preserving history, and for the last section, for an example, I was trying to look for memorials that were taken down, and I was just met with pages and pages of search results about Confederate statues being taken down and the argument around that. The importance of history is that it is a cautionary tale. We do not want to repeat the mistakes of the past. We need memorials to see the suffering that those mistakes led to. Anybody who wants to take down a memorial but will gladly argue in favor of keeping up a Confederate statue does not care about history. They want to put the assailants of violence on a pedestal and erase the names of the victims, because they want us to think that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. In fact, war is never about anything. Violence is never about anything. It's just human nature. It happens for no reason, and we can only hope that the cops will scare off the violence that is there. They want history to repeat itself. They want us to think that we can't do better, that we have to keep reinvesting in this system where violent crime is not prevented. Mass shooting numbers continue to go up, but maybe, just maybe, we can retaliate against the people who commit it after they've already killed so many. We can prevent violence. There is significant data telling us that we can. If we just invest in social programs and help out people in poverty and invest in like homeless shelters, then it has been proven that violent crime goes down if we invest in those programs. But we're told that investing more and more into the police is going to solve it, when it hasn't so far, and it won't. History just keeps repeating itself, and we're told to just smile and nod. But this video is not meant to be a downer. This isn't a hopeless cause. Absolute Batman does remind us that there is a way forward through this. It's tough, but there can be a better world if we fight for it. It starts with us doing something as simple as just remembering the victims and realizing that a kid losing their life in a school shooting isn't normal, and that this needs to be prevented. We can't let history keep repeating itself. Lastly, we get a page showing the Gotham Zoo and that sign, this time reading, "Bats are not blind." Bruce hunches over the party animal mask as Roman offers him $200 million to stand down for a week, and the party animals will go a little easier on Gotham. Roman continues asking Bruce to think about how epic Batman could be, how big he could build, when Bruce interrupts him.
Enough. I'll take the deal.
Issue 4 is interesting because it's kind of a year one story, the start of Absolute Batman, and it could have kind of slotted in anywhere. It was going to be a little awkward no matter where it went, but I kind of love it here. We just got a big cliffhanger. Let's just sit on it for a second. We open with a group of thugs on top of an apartment building talking to its residents. They say they need more money in order to keep the neighborhood clean, and when one disagrees, the main thug tosses her off the building, and then she's tossed right back up. They all, confused, examine the ledge as Batman looms behind them. Batman screeches and jumps down, biting into one of their necks with vampire teeth, and then punches them to the side. He then lunges at another, tearing them open with these massive claws. The leader pulls a gun as Batman quickly disarms him before pointing the gun back at him. We get a flashback of Bruce building his science project for the competition, which will win him his trip to the zoo. He says that the design is inspired by bats and it's meant to be intimidating so people feel safe inside it. Thomas questions if intimidation is the right way to go before switching to a simple good job. We cut back to Batman holding the gun. The rest of the gang rush in and make their presence known. Batman jumps off the rooftop and thinks to himself,
It's just fucking theatrics. The face paint, the voice distorter, silicone fangs loaded with paralytic, and this?
Bruce tosses the claws, fangs, and gun into a fire.
They're street criminals, the most desperate. Scare off the 10 thieves, others take their place? No. It's not enough. Batman needs to do more. Think bigger. So build him, Bruce.
I love this idea of Bruce having to figure out what Batman is. Although it's not a new idea, I think this trial and error is a lot of fun, and it is kind of a representation of the 80 years of Batman stories to get here. He is a character made of trial and error, of hundreds of different people just throwing stuff at the wall, and what we have now is just what stuck. I don't want Bruce to know what Batman is right away. He's young, let him experiment. Let him be a little cringe with the vampire teeth. It's fun, and it makes him feel more human. This year has been a lot of failing for me. I've been trying to create as much as I can, and I've learned from my mistakes a lot, but I'm still making those mistakes, and I often find myself faltering in my conviction to doing this. And I don't know, this issue came out in January of 2025, right when I started this whole thing of trying to create as much as I could, and I find so much comfort in rereading it, and this notion that even Batman stumbled before figuring it out. He also has this mantra I love of think bigger, specifically about the gang he took out, realizing that they are small time and are just symptoms of larger issues, and those issues are where Batman is needed.
One of the mob transport trucks drives through a tunnel as Bruce pilots a little RC Batmobile under the truck. Just when the truck driver sees him standing there, he clicks the button as a piston fires off, smashing the cargo into the ceiling. Bruce tallies up the cost for that gadget as under $1,000. He thinks to himself,
See, Bruce? Now this feels better.
Flashback to Bruce's bridge again. Bruce explained how bats adapt, using echolocation to learn their environment, so his bridge needs to do the same. It can adjust to fit its environment. Bruce questions if it will be enough, so Thomas comforts him, saying that life is sometimes just trial and error. He tells the story of how his father died suddenly of a heart attack, so he decided to be a heart surgeon. But when Martha got pregnant, it changed things. He had to find a new purpose, and that's when he realized all he wanted was to make sure that no kid felt what he did, and as a teacher, he could prepare them for the world. The cruel irony that the thing Thomas wanted to prevent from happening to any other kid happened to his own son is heartbreaking. Bruce takes on his dad's mission to make sure no kid ever felt like they did. I also can't help but think of the implications here. We're told that Thomas's dad's death wasn't preventable, but also they probably couldn't afford regular checkups at the doctor. I think Thomas's decision to be a teacher also has a level of understanding that being a heart surgeon, at the end of the day, he would only be helping the people who could afford operations like that. And in that way, he wouldn't have been able to save his own father. My relationship with teachers is strange, so much so that I meant to record a full thing for this, talking about teachers, but I just couldn't find the words, and now it is the night before I post this, and I just have to put something here. So I am in the 47th ranked state in education, which is weird because teachers are paid next to nothing, which means that the teachers I did have either had to be a saint who had a spouse or parents who could supplement their income and make sure they could actually survive, because they are basically making negative money with all the school supplies they have to buy, or people who literally had no other choice. Literally, so many of my teachers had wanted to do something else and were like, this was all I could do. This is all my degree would allow, and they were very upfront about it. But it leads to this very sick cycle, and I see it a lot in my hometown and people I went to class with, where we didn't have the best teachers because they weren't paid a lot. And so now these people are advocating for lowering funding on teachers, which just make teachers worse, because they don't value school, because they didn't have those good teachers. It's beyond depressing to say. My point with Absolute Batman, though, is that it is very refreshing to see a piece of art talk about teachers in this way. Specifically, Thomas talking about teaching, he is not settling because heart surgery didn't work out, or him being a heart surgeon didn't work out. He just chose to be a teacher because that is what he always wanted to do. It talks about being a teacher as if it is the same value as a heart surgeon, which is something I agree with, but we are kind of programmed by capitalism to disagree with. Heart surgeons paid more, thus that person is more valuable. It's messed up, but again, this comic is just talking about teachers in this way, I think, is very beneficial and just good. We cut between Bruce riding a motorcycle outside of Gotham and images from the world today. All over this conversation Bruce and Thomas had about the bridge so long ago. Bruce admits he was going about the bridge the wrong way, focusing on the bridge and not the people who would be using it. Bruce, at 10 years old, then goes on this speech about people today just wanting to live and flourish. But the world's falling apart, and everybody is hurting and feels like no one can see them. Everybody is at mercy of forces outside of their control, powerless. Some are angry at everyone who let them down, and some are scared and hunkering down, but it's bad. As an adult, Bruce hikes around outside Gotham as a flock of bats flee a cave before he can even enter. Bruce just watches them fly into the sky. Once again, we get a montage of Bruce talking to his dad about the bridge, which has a black cloth over it here, so it looks like the bat symbol, which, come on, that's awesome. This whole conversation is set to the backdrop of adult Bruce crafting the Batman persona. He says the bridge should be more intimidating, scary even, and more adaptable than ever. Adult Bruce crafts his armor, trains, and invents the bat thumb.
Kid Bruce says it should spread further, roosting in all sorts of places. As an adult, he makes the bat caves. Finally, Kid Bruce does warn that it's pretty weird, but Thomas tells him to stop stalling. Let's see it. Bruce shows off this origami-like structure, similar to the other designs but with one new feature. It flies. Made to be airdropped into an area and easily assembled by the people who need it for their needs, not anybody else's. We now see Batman's first excursion with this Batman he's created.
The annual Dance for a Better Gotham charity ball. Gotham's finest mingled and sponsor a competition in which youth dance groups from different neighborhoods compete for prizes. Me, I'm here for him. Randall Powers, the billionaire who owns the trucking conglomerate the Maronis and Falcones were using. In the news, he was horrified by what I exposed, vowed to support new regulations on his trucks. But I hear him lobbying Max Mooney, head of the GDOT, against tighter transit laws, promising money. It takes everything in my body not to bust through the skylight and put him on the dance floor. Instead, I keep listening. I listen to Jackson Ellis, the EPA chief backdealing with William Acme, one of the biggest polluters in Gotham. I listened to the politician who vowed to bring factory jobs back to the Heights, begging the automation giant for donations. I listened to all of you, so many who were supposed to be protecting the city, on who could help so easily, but chose not to, chose instead to stay up here, laughing and eating. Like there's anything left of this city to eat. No, you ate it all years ago, and ate well. It's just bones now. But I hear you. A few stone-broad GSM ears hidden beneath that dance floor, not to mention the thermal coil that'll flash heat the gold to 150 degrees in a moment. Just hot enough so we get to watch you dance for once, even if only for a second. But no one can touch you up here, right? In this mad little kingdom of yours at the top of the world? Well, I'm coming for you.
A lot's happening here, but I want to specifically point out Bruce's detest for this event. Specifically his urge to make the rich people dance for once when this is a charity ball to give money to smaller income communities. Well, that leads to the question, is it really charity? It's not really, is it? It's an event with entertainment. These children dancing with only one group of them actually getting paid. These children are just doing a job, with it being up to a certain amount of luck, whether or not they're compensated for it, which, might I add, places a huge part of this family's financial burden on these children. This type of charity has become all too common. Is Mr. Beast truly charitable? Is making somebody stay in a prison for 100 days to receive money charity? Or is it just the rich taking advantage of how desperate the poor have become in this system for their own profit and amusement? We then cut back to Bruce revealing the buzzsaws he built into the bridge, asking if it's too much. Thomas remarks that maybe too much is good these days. Kid Bruce then agrees, saying that the thing that defines a bat for him is that it defies the impossible, the only mammal that can fly. We then cut to Bruce arriving at the prison to talk to Joe Chill. Bruce buries his anger and sits down.
Well, you had something you wanted to say?
This is the last time we get hints at this conversation in this arc. We never get to actually see it, which intrigues me. But my personal theory for what is said here has to be something about how Joe Chill at the zoo is wearing a mask eerily similar to black masks. We still don't know much about these masks, but my guess would be that if this is the route they're going, that somehow this mass shooting benefited the Joker or some other rich person. I do think that that would be a weird move for the story to pull, honestly, since the random violence angle works so well, but we'll just have to see how it's done and if that's even the route they're going. Looping back to this bridge design, this once again points out an kind of inherent flaw with superhero world building that I find. Superhero worlds are filled with genius characters who invent world-changing stuff all the time, but the world can't change, not really.
The world can't be too different without us losing a level of relatability, and Absolute Batman is addressing this, even if indirectly. Of course this world-changing invention didn't go anywhere. It's too world-changing, and most importantly, it gives power to the people. Every couple months or so, I see this lone article talking about huge strides towards a cure for cancer, or converting plastic to gasoline, or some other major breakthrough. I get that those aren't simple things, but at a certain point, this does feel strange, right? Hearing about all these huge steps and then never seeing anything about them again. To prove my point, I ended up searching for this one specific article I remember about some institution in South Korea being able to reverse cancer cells. I don't know why, it just stuck out to me. Now, I know nothing about cancer and how you would even go about curing it, and I'm not going to do too much research into that because this is a Batman video, and Batman Day was a while ago. But there is nothing on that research I was talking about, which is from December of 2024. A few articles that are probably AI summaries of the actual research paper, all just a week after the research paper came out, and there has been no update since. It has been over a year. This seems like it should be bigger news, right? Even if it's something saying that it didn't work, I feel like there should be updates on this research. Even if it's an article disproving it, anything. A few months ago, there was a lot of news coverage about something kind of similar, still with gene alteration. A bunch of scientists made a dire wolf that isn't really a dire wolf. They just made a wolf really big and called it a dire wolf. And this project is getting near weekly updates from The Guardian, CBS, CNN, Men's Journal, Screen Rant for some reason, fucking IMDb. I don't get it. Why? This company doesn't matter. They aren't even doing this for any effort of conservation or bringing back recently extinct species. They literally just want to make Jurassic Park. That tangent got a little off track, but my point is this. Science is controlled. The research we are shown is what maintains the status quo. They want to show us that science is making strides, that their way of running the world works. But it can't work too well. It can't actually do anything to help us. A bridge that could be set up anywhere and is cheap disrupts the order. A cure for cancer disrupts this order. So they shove a big wolf in our face and bury the actual important science that could save lives. The bridge is never brought up again. Bruce won his little trip to the zoo, and that is all the bridge amounted to. Or at least all it would have amounted to if this wasn't Batman we were talking about. This back and forth between Thomas is really honing not only Bruce's engineering, but his spirit and his convictions. The institution is not going to support a bridge like what Bruce made. But Bruce can still use that information. He can use that research. In fact, it's very clear to me that he does. Bruce's cape seems like it is highly similar to this bridge design. Bruce makes sure that the bridge is used by using it himself. That says something about a kind of necessity for the people researching and making discoveries, which today are mostly individuals. I just learned that 50% of cold cases are solved by individuals with DNA testing kits that just wanted to pick up a new hobby. What? We have to do it all ourselves. But if we don't, then this stuff is just forgotten. These huge strides forward for science, things that could change the world, are just left in the dust. We can't allow that. This is such a good year one issue, so much so that I was almost tempted to put it at the start of this whole video, but
I do think it works really well here, and it blatantly states the theme in case you haven't gotten it yet.
That's Batman. He's going to make a bridge with the bat wings and let people run across and reclaim their principles from these things. Reclaim the ideals that everything is founded on, from that space.
The quote I just used is an interview with Scott Snyder from Comic Book Club Live, right after issue 4's release, and it also had this section which really resonated with me.
When I started thinking about doing Absolute Batman, the impetus really was wanting to write something that felt modern and exciting, and so weirdly it didn't feel like my fears now, about myself and about my place in the world, are as potent as my fear for my kids. I'm 10 years older, 15 years older. My kids are facing a world that's really much more challenging, much more diverse, much more cruel and frightening than it felt not too long ago. And so the strange thing to me is I see them so determined to change it, and so resistant and so unwilling to accept it as it is. It became a series that was much more about, well, what if I am Alfred in this one? What if I'm watching a Bruce who's almost this force of nature, an alien, who's young and scary to me, and interesting but inspiring, ultimately?
We open on Bruce getting a rabies shot, the doctor joking that if he starts growing ears and fangs to call her. Then we get the 2-page spread, the entire cast gathered for Thomas's funeral. Bruce, covered in shadow, looms over his father's coffin, holding a single red rose. I want to bring attention to this beautiful composition where everything just leads into Bruce. It's actually what inspired the opening shot of this video, so whoa. The rain naturally draws our attention to Bruce's face, but with his eyes being covered by shadow, it's a little hard for us to recognize a face there. It's a little uncomfortable. So we scan the rest of the image only to find that everyone else has their eyes closed. It's an uncomfortable picture. Everything about it is telling us to look at something we instinctively avoid looking at, the victim. It's very hard to see this stuff, to see these images, especially when we see examples from the real world, but I think that's what makes it so important to actually look. At a certain point, the least we can give is our attention. Batman makes the biggest scene he can, revving the motorcycle engine past all the party animals, taunting them, but they all let him pass. Finally, he makes it to the meeting spot. Alfred tells him, "Well done." We then cut to Martha in the mayor's office, carrying a stack of campaign signs to Gordon. Gordon sulks, looking at the news as Hill announces Bullock's endorsement. Martha tries to cheer him up by reminding him how they met. Gordon arrested Martha at a protest but didn't book her, just let her go and even gave her money for a new sign since he accidentally broke hers. Martha finishes her story by saying that while most of the time people in Gotham let you down, sometimes they surprise you, so they have to keep trying. Gordon deflects by apologizing for the memorial light and all the shit reasons it won't be turned on. He especially feels bad for Bruce as we flash back to the funeral. Gordon tries to console Bruce, telling him that his dad was truly brave and that they'll tear down the zoo to put something practical there. But before we hear Bruce's response, we cut back to Batman. Bruce sits as a helicopter descends onto the building. Alfred watches from afar, spotting multiple snipers. He sees Bruce tense up for a moment and thinks to himself that Bruce did it. All the party animals are jealous because Batman won. Black Mask exits the helicopter, saying loudly, "Let's make you rich," before explaining that all 200 million, Jesus, was sent to his bank account this morning. Batman won. I've been talking a lot about this allure of the party animals and being rich, this get-rich-quick scheme, even if it means you have to be extremely violent. A party animal's main motivation is to get rich, and now they see Batman winning this competition by a landslide. Unfathomably rich, and not even in cryptocurrency. He's getting actual USD. Of course they're jealous because now they have to confront the uncomfortable truth that you can't win by playing their rules. Batman tells Black Mask that he already used it on something.
On what? Cars, planes, bat computers? How much did you use? I have to know.
All of it. Want to see how I spent it?
As we see the money all stacked up in one spot, we cut to the funeral again. Bruce tells Gordon that he doesn't want the zoo to be knocked down for something practical. He wants something that makes everybody look. The memorial light turns on behind him, the money stacked on top of it to carve out the bat signal in the sky. Black Mask shouts,
That is one ugly bat. Party animals! The deal is off!
Party animals begin rushing Batman. Batman remarks,
See, Roman? I don't need cars or planes or computers. I don't need anything you have. All I need is Batman.
Batman then proceeds to just body all the party animals coming his way. Even Cleaver Guy from way back when tries to jump on Bruce's back only to be caught in the back spikes. Batman continues on his speech, saying that the party animals and all the crimes were orchestrated by Black Mask and their boss, and that they don't care how many die. Black Mask responds with, But you do, fire. The snipers begin shooting at all the party animals surrounding Batman. Batman tries to shield them, but it gives Black Mask the opportunity to trap Batman in a net. Black Mask circles Batman, baffled at how close he was to winning, only to throw it away. Batman tries to grab at Black Mask as Black Mask snaps his arm. Batman then gets his wide grin as he reveals that this whole interaction has been recorded, already sent to every news station in Gotham. Black Mask kneels down to Batman, asking if he actually thinks he achieved something here. They take out Batman's ear knife and begin stabbing into his side with it. Black Mask continues, saying that the burning cash won't inspire them. Exposing the truth won't change anything. He's not a hero. Another one of Roman's goons lights up a flamethrower. Black Mask looks at the burning Batman and says that the real hero is money. They grab Batman's battle axe from his utility belt, using it to smack Batman clean off the roof. The last of the money burns away as the bat signal fades. Okay, elephant in the room. I already compared this Batman to the Dark Knight's Joker, and now Batman is burning a pile of money because effectively it's not about money, it's about sending a message. In 16 years, something that was once symbolically so heinous, a true show of nihilism, of not caring, became something genuinely heroic, a refusal to conform. In 1994, the band the KLF took a ferry to the island of Jura and reportedly burned 1 million quid in an abandoned boathouse. The entire thing was recorded and would later be released as the film Watch the KLF Burn a Million Quid. The band would tour with the film, and after each showing would ask the audience, why did we do it? No matter what answer they got, they responded the same way, just kind of dodging it and saying that they were going to officially answer why they did it in 23 years. 23 years is a long time, and over that time, people thought about it, they came to their own conclusions, and they kind of dropped it. Most chalked it up to a defining moment in the situationist movement, creating situations causing people to question capitalism. Some more specific leading theories, though, was that it was a critique over the music industry and how it distributed funds to its artists. Some thought it was a critique over the relationship between art and money itself. Or maybe it was a critique of the rich, asking why should we get mad at the KLF for burning money when rich people are burning through money on stupid shit all the time. Or maybe it was just made to be provocative, to invite shock and awe, to be something so insane that people just had to look. I have a particular disdain for that theory because that's the Joker. I'm looping it back. In Batman Begins, we're introduced to the idea of wealth inequality in Gotham. But in The Dark Knight, that theme is pretty much completely dropped. And it makes sense because for the Joker to work as a villain, the system has to work. He has to be driven by cynicism. Him burning money is him rejecting a system which, according to the movie, works perfectly fine. In 2017, the KLF ended their 23-year silence and invited people onto a panel to ask them questions. Why did you do it seemed to be a pretty leading one, and whenever they were asked, they just simply answered, whatever. The Guardian article I found about the whole event had this to say. My admittedly banal theory about why they burned the money is that at the time they were crazy. Hoogton says on stage that they were both having breakdowns. The Dark Knight's Joker is inherently born of this interpretation of radical action as something so cynical, when I'd argue the exact opposite. Throughout my life, I've always seen the punk movement being treated as inherently nihilistic. Like people thought they were specifically pointing out the bad in the system, when it's exactly like Batman. None of it makes sense if they didn't hope the world could be better. Why point out the failings of the system if they didn't think we could fix it? Punk has always inherently been hopeful. Whatever is in no way a non-answer. It is not ambiguous, it is all-encompassing. The act of burning money protests every facet of capitalism, and thus every facet of the world and system we exist in. Every theory I listed earlier is true. It protests the music industry, corporations, hell, a kid's lemonade stand. It protests money. Money is just paper, handed to you with an enigmatic value decided by somebody else that every day is worth less and less. Batman decided that his symbol, the bat symbol, was worth more than all of that paper. Absolute Joker represents that money itself. There is nothing Absolute Batman could have done with that money that wouldn't have played directly into the Joker's hands. The Dark Knight's Joker turns down the necessity that is money, just to show how uncaring his worldview is. He does not need the things money can buy. He does not need food. It is ineffective suicide. But Absolute Batman turns down the idea that money is a necessity at all, that we need to exist in this system in the first place. He rejects the arbitrary system that is capitalism because all he needs is Batman. He defies the impossible. Batman plummets, his cape barely slowing him down enough so he doesn't die on impact. The moment he hits the ground, cops swarm him with machine guns and military vehicles, opening fire. Bruce is able to duck into a parking garage as Barbara Gordon arrives on the scene. She finds Bruce, beaten, climbing into a sewer. She threatens to shoot, and Bruce tells her, "Do it then." Important to note here that Bruce lost his mask in the scuffle, so Barbara might know his identity. Probably not, but I think it's something to keep in mind. Unfortunately, she hasn't had a big role since this moment, but she's supposed to in later issues, so. We cut back to Black Mask as he goes live to the Gotham News.
Hello, Gotham. My name is Roman. A little about me. I grew up on a big farm. Humble beginnings, I know. One of my jobs on our farm was to kill the pigs when the time came. I used one of those captive bolt pistols. 5-inch pin, right in. Most of the times it was just thunk, down. But once in a while, on rare occasions, the pig would have this spasm. Not of pain, but of joy. It was wild. It let out this moan and shiver, and it even smile. Smile with blood spurting from its head. I learned later that this only happened if the pin got deep enough to hit this tiny little spot in the brain called the hedonistic hub, the main pleasure center. And that only occurred if the pig didn't tense up when the pin hit, but just relaxed and accepted it. If the pig did, the hub would literally flood the last bits of its brain with total, unchecked pleasure. The split second of ecstasy that only came with the acceptance of death. Which brings me to now, this moment. Because come on, we all feel it. The big guys, they killed the world long ago. And yet they keep us all slaving away with the promise it's all still alive. I mean, admit it, you can barely pay your bills while their money makes money. You drag recycling to the curb while they ride in private jets that tear the sky apart. You struggle to hold this system together that does nothing for you. Doing the right thing so they can do the wrong one? Why?
We cut to Bruce patching himself up. He asks Alfred to help, but Alfred refuses, saying that Bruce messed up big time. He's done helping, and whatever comes next is on him. Alfred leaves as we get a small panel. Bats are highly infectious. That one's inclusion is a lot of fun. It doesn't seem like it fits super well in the scene, but I think that's a point. Despite Alfred saying all of this, he's still inspired by Bruce to a certain degree. He's still infected.
I'll ask again. Why? I say enough! Because all those ideals, those dreams you're toiling for, they're dead. Progress is dead. History is dead. Truth is dead. So how about we all just admit it's dead and relax, so the pin can hit that sweet little spot. Let's all live in that one split second of ecstasy. Feast on the giant scraps. And because Batman turned down his invite, I'm offering invitations to all of you. Hundreds of millions of dollars, all up for grabs. Welcome to the party, Gotham.
Roman's speech is fantastic. What he's actually saying, along with the context of what's happening around him, is something that so accurately captures the feeling of the world today. That nihilism has become the norm. Oh, you want down? All right. We don't have a ton of concrete information about Roman's backstory, but my interpretation is that he's full of shit. This whole idea of humble beginnings, that's what all rich people do. They want you to think that they worked to get where they are. They want you to think that they genuinely struggled. They want to be relatable to you. So they just leave out the parts about generational wealth. Furthermore, Roman brings up a method of killing that seems to be most popular in industrialized slaughterhouses, the bolt gun. Now, I couldn't do much research into the bolt gun because it just made me really sad. And I don't like looking into industrialized slaughterhouses. I hope everyone can understand that. But his description of how it's used seems to be a little off from reality. It is most often used to incapacitate. Also, there's no evidence of it being able to touch the pleasure center of a pig's brain. I couldn't find anything on that. I'm saying all this because I think it's important to remember that the myth of the self-made man is just that. It's a myth. It's something rich people like to sell, this idea that they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, when the world we have today, we know you can't do that. You can't get rich by your own means and through hard work. It is a system that encourages doing heinous things and just being born rich. But they want you to work hard. So they tell you you can get rich the same way they did, so that you work hard for them, even though it will never surmount to anything. Okay. I'm interjecting with a literary concept because I had a whole other thing recorded for it, but the audio got really messed up, so I just have to do it now, and I hope that I'm able to get it across well. Death to the author is a concept that I think oftentimes is talked about once a work is out there, it is separate from the artist. It is complete. It is its own thing. It's often used as a justification for liking art that came from a problematic artist, which I think is fair, and it's a fair use of death to the author, but also we have been saying it so much for this hyper-specific scenario that I think we have lost the greater meaning of death to the author. Death to the author inherently states that the art is not the artist. But that raises the question of, then what is the art? Okay? If a painter paints a painting and they are the only one to see it, they are the sole creator of that painting, then how is that painting not just the artist? Right? And the answer is, by viewing it, by actually seeing it, we engage with the art. And thus, we, just as much as the author, do create the story. It's a complicated and kind of weird idea, especially if you're not familiar with it. But really, if you think about it, comics are a great example. It is a bunch of still images on a page, but between those images, what happens? you just kind of fill in the blanks. Those things aren't in the story. Those tiny moments aren't. But it becomes a complete story because we naturally fill in the blanks. And I'm bringing this all up now because then we get to Black Mask's backstory. I'm looping it back, which there are many valid interpretations of. We don't have that much evidence, which means we can kind of think whatever. But whatever we do think is based a lot on our own life. I'm definitely using this as an excuse to just talk about death to the author, but I want to get across that with Black Mask's backstory and this whole video, this is my interpretation of things. And you will have a different interpretation. That's natural, that's human. Your own interpretations of these things, like, put them in the comments. I wanted to come across it like, I am not an expert. Anyone is allowed to just have their take like this. My expert opinion is having a degree from community college.
The issue ends with people being swayed by Roman's speech, which I really like. Batman doesn't win here because people are inherently good, which I would say they are. I'm not trying to say that they aren't, but people are beaten down and broken. I've known people, more than I would like to admit, that would easily put on this mask. People are scared, and I think that a lot of people, if they were told that the world's ending or the world's already over, they just might believe it. We open on Waylon watching the news. It is now public knowledge that Roman Sionis is providing people with masks and weapons to encourage people into joining the party animals. The city is in a state of emergency with people urged to stay indoors. This is what the entire arc with the party animals has been leading to, showing us just how easily people can go down this path. We've seen so many characters express their fears over the party animals, and now off screen it seems like a majority of the city just turned like that. Earlier we talked about the party animals' motivation, this wanting to be rich, this hollow effort to be on top of the social hierarchy. But the truly sad part about all of this is that the party animals, by existing, creates more party animals. People want to protect themselves from the party animals. They need power to do that, so they turn to becoming party animals themselves. It's a sick cycle. But we saw in issue number 5, Roman ordered party animals to start opening fire on each other. Having the mask, being in this in-group, doesn't protect you. The specific type of violence that is encouraged with the party animals is inherently cannibalistic. Waylon hears a noise outside, only to find Bruce, hunched over and beaten. And as Waylon goes to help him inside, he accidentally pricks himself on one of Bruce's back spikes. Bruce tells Waylon,
Because I'm Batman, and I need your help.
The Zoo, Part 6, our last time seeing that name and our last 2-page spread of this arc. We've seen this image before, it's Bruce and his friends as kids. But ending the arc with this image is a very interesting choice to me. We learn later that this was taken at the zoo, which makes sense, it is labeled. But this is the first time we're actually seeing a happy memory as the 2-page spread. Even issue 1 chose to have a looming gun against a clear blue sky. It is dreadful. It sets up that something's going to go wrong. And now here, when the stakes have never been higher, they chose to have this image. It's also important to mention that this is the first time we don't have large blackened silhouettes all over the page. It is a light image. This title spread is a very deliberate choice, and I think it was made for a lot of reasons, that most of which we will touch back on when we learn more as this issue goes on, but I want to start with just the tone it sets for this issue, because again, we are missing those large black silhouettes. That feeling of dread we get is gone. Instead, we have this lighter image, which again feels strange. This is the climax of this arc. Why this? But this image does inspire a type of dread. It's very different than what we were getting before, of course, but here
there is this unease with the absence of those silhouettes. I will make a little side note that, Batman says, I am the shadows, and now with the climax we are missing the shadows. That could be something. But I think most of all, the shadows, these silhouettes, have been something consistent. A through line in this story. We know that those 2-page title spreads are going to have those large looming shadows. And now, even though we know this image is supposed to be brighter, we know this is supposed to be happier, but it is unnerving that we are missing that thing that we've come to expect. Absolute Batman has used silhouettes to set up the tone, this dread. And now that we're used to the silhouettes, now that we're used to the shadows, it removes them to set up more dread and make it more unnerving. It's very impressive. We then see Kid Bruce having a sleepover with his friends. They all joke around as Joe Chill enters the room. Chill immediately opens fire, Martha shielding the kids from the bullets. Bruce wakes up from the dream in a panic. He goes to Martha as she comforts him. We then cut to Martha in the present day, surrounded by people carrying rifles. She investigates the party animal masks to see all the money offered for various crimes. Robbery for $50K, arson for $100K, assault is $150K, and murder is $250K. Martha then looks over to Gordon to see the bounty on his head is $1 million. Interestingly though, the person currently threatening Gordon doesn't even have a mask. They don't see the bounty on his head. They are doing this just to get to the party animal masks, just for a chance to buy into that illusion that is the in-group. This person is also threatening the mayor of Gotham without anything concealing their identity. I think it really goes to show how much people bought into Black Mask speech. If you think the world is ending, why bother? Keen viewers may have already noticed, but these party animal masks bear very different designs than the ones we've seen. The black masks have been replaced by actual animals, a bunch of different ones too. There's a large variety and we never see two that are alike. They've lost their identity as a group, which is so much scarier. No more faceless goons attacking in mass. It is people just like you who have chosen violence. Side note, we never see a bat mask. Roman wants people to view Batman as just another one of these animals. With all this, we really get a good look at how exactly Roman destabilizes areas. First step, create an in-group, something with a clear identity motif, something instantly recognizable, and then use that to encourage people to do things that social norms, laws, and basic morality forbid them to do. And most importantly, give them anonymity. Tell them there will be no consequences to their actions. Step 2, make people fear this group. Have them attack without rhyme or reason. Be unpredictable, sow chaos. Step 2.5, you can then use this to just campaign all current politicians out of office because they couldn't even stop blank group. And then profit from having politicians you have control over. Step 4, open up in-group to the public. Let anybody join. And now everybody knows that in-group is people just like them. Take away people's hope in humanity and then leave them to either join the group or get gunned down by its members. Step 5, now only the in-group is left. Everyone else is dead. And when everyone is in the in-group, no one is. Suddenly, we now have a group of people who we know are willing to kill for money. And while they can't distinguish everybody as in, oh, this guy is John, everyone knows who the elk mask guy is. The masks, the things that were supposed to protect their identity, just become their identity. There's no safety behind these masks anymore. There's no protection in the in-group. It's kill or be killed. So yeah, 5 easy steps to make Fortnite Battle Royale in real life. I'm saying all this because I want to make sure it is absolutely clear that I do not think Absolute Batman is saying that when the average person is given the chance, they will turn to violence. The infamous Stanford prison experiment concluded that humans, when their identity is concealed, will turn to violence and evil. That evil exists in everybody. But the interesting thing about the Stanford prison experiment is that the people who committed these atrocities have since said that they thought that was the that was the behavior they were supposed to be doing. That was what they thought was being encouraged. And most importantly, that's what they thought they were being paid for. But I think one of the things that the Stanford Prison Experiment proved is that capitalism, the very system of money, getting paid for something, primes us to be more accepting and willing to commit violent acts. This is not a story about Batman fighting human nature, that humans are inherently violent and they will turn to violence when given the chance. This is a story about Batman fighting the very system and institutions that encourage violent behavior. Speaking of Batman, Oz flying a helicopter yells at Bruce for never telling him he's Batman. Bruce says he was trying to protect them, which Oz says that the secret's out now. Waylon wants to punch him, Harvey wants to arrest him, and Eddie already knew for weeks. I messaged Scott Snyder on Instagram saying, hey, love Absolute Batman. Is Absolute Riddler autistic? And didn't get a response, which, fair. That's completely valid. But, death to the author. I've decided that Absolute Riddler's autistic. That's all that matters. And I mean, you can decide whatever you want, but writing's on the wall, guys. Bruce cuts him off as they hover over Roman's yacht. Bruce says he just has to blow up the server room to stop all this. Oz says he doesn't have enough fuel to wait around as Bruce responds, I'm not asking you to, or anyone else, and Bruce jumps. Batman dive bombs onto the boat, landing on Roman's DJ. He grabs some life jackets, forces one onto the DJ and kicks him into the ocean. Then this kid rushes Batman with a knife as Batman forces a life jacket onto him.
What are you? Stop, man! I'm just a kid, you can't!
Batman drop kicks the child. Woo! Then this woman runs onto the deck. Batman gives her this insane grin as she opts to just jump off the ship. Batman tosses her a life jacket. This whole issue gets cited a lot for this Batman being deranged and a lot of people saying he has a loving mother at home, which we will see later on. I mean, this whole attitude carries throughout the whole issue. But I ask you, is him drop kicking a child deranged or just fucking awesome? We then cut back to Martha and Gordon as Martha tries to reason with the gunmen, desperately trying to explain that Black Mask is using them for his own profit. It's all a game to him, and the only way to win is by not playing. One of the masked men then says that maybe the game is all that's left, and that they're lucky to play it because they got the masks. This really corroborates that in-group idea. This guy thinks he's safe because he has the mask. That's what the point of the mask is. That's not how the song goes. This exclusive club that gives them protection, even if the only reason they even have those masks is because of luck. That's what the point of the mask is. Is that how the song goes? I don't. The masked men point their guns at Gordon, Martha, and the guy who was trying to get a mask, which I think just goes to show how quickly they will be turning on each other. Back in issue number 1, Martha said that it was the people of Gotham's responsibility to defeat the party animals. And I said I was going to loop back to it, so here we are, like 10 minutes later probably. I said at the time that Martha was not suggesting that people fight the party animals using brute force, which still remains true. The creation of groups like the party animals are not due to a lack of force we have as a society. As Gordon said, more guns don't solve problems. Rather, they are an institutional and ideological failure because they were able to be created in the first place. Evil isn't just spawned in. It is born of specific conditions that we have documented. I think that's what Batman is always about in some way. Even mainline universe, it is about a rich person having enough empathy to recognize the conditions that create crime. Batman doesn't kill because of this focus on rehabilitation, because he genuinely believes people can change for the better. We as a society, as a culture, as a people, whatever you want to call it, have to come together to cut off the food source. We have to change the world so that no one is desperate enough to turn to groups like the party animals in the first place. And we can't allow people to justify their own existence because they commit violence on people who aren't in their in-group. Absolute Batman, despite all the changes, lives to that same core philosophy. I started this video thinking that Batman as a character didn't stand for much. Being a rich person, thought that it was kind of ironic, the inspiration it caused. He's not an everyman. I couldn't be Batman if I wanted to. But I think that's the thing. It is someone who, from a position of so much privilege, decides to have empathy and to understand that evil is something that can be stopped. It isn't this immortal concept, despite how much everyone wants us to think it is. On the other side of the city, Alfred evacuates his daughter, Julie, from Gotham. Julie says that she has a life here, people she cares about, and if the plane takes off, then she'll never talk to Alfred again. Alfred orders the takeoff anyway. I haven't talked about Julie a lot besides brief mentions, but I do think it does a really good job of characterizing Alfred and his philosophy. He wants to help people. He wants to be a good person, but he is so convinced that he has to hurt people in order to help them. He has to exist as this necessary evil. Alfred is a character whose job has forced him to make compromise after compromise after compromise, and now he's just this bundle of paradoxes and inconsistencies. And do we really know who Alfred is? Why is he doing all this? What's his motivation for being this MI6 agent super spy? Whoever Alfred was is so lost at this point. And the saddest part is that we've seen that Alfred has compromised himself so much. And we've only heard of him doing objectively bad things. Despite trying to do good, despite desperately trying to make the world a better place, he still goes about it in a way that makes him complacent, if not actively aiding the problems in the world. In issue number 1, Alfred stands on a perch and watches the party animals attack Town Hall. He asks to intervene, but his handler says no. In issue number 3, we see a lion standing atop a pile of rocks looking down at Bruce being carried away by Gordon. In a cruel and tragic twist of fate, I think Alfred, a character who clearly so desperately wants to do good, has become the most complacent, falling into this ideology of that's not how the world works. He's lost all hope, and if that keeps up, then he won't be able to change anything. Back on the boat, Roman jumps from the upper deck onto Batman. Batman kicks him into a wall and
You still don't get it, do you? You think you can stop them? You think you can stop anything that's coming? Let me tell you a little.
and then tackles him through the wall. Side note that it is implied that the kid Bruce kicked is Roman's child. Did Roman just watch his kid get drop kicked? Roman tries to give his monologue about how nothing will change, but Batman just hits him over the head with a bowling ball. Batman then tackles him through the floor into a hallway with Roman's collection of death masks.
Go on, keep talking. Tell me again how I don't matter. I love it. I fucking love it. So please, Roman, go on. I said go on.
Batman wails on Roman over and over again as we're treated with these 2 shots of Falcone and Maroni's death masks, back from issue 1. These death masks are very interesting to me. It's a callback to issue number 1, but also they're shown in bright red casing, which is the color constantly associated with violence in this comic. There's also this thing of Bruce telling Roman to tell him he doesn't matter, and we see that the death masks of the history Roman killed, the people that Roman said didn't matter. That's my best attempt at analyzing the inserts. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what they mean. Any function I think of just feels off. I feel like it's like the one thing that no matter how much I think about it, I can't quite place why that is shown there. So if anyone has any theories, please go to the comments
I would love to hear them. Roman grabs a spool of wire and wraps it around Batman's neck, tight, cutting through his armor and producing blood. We flash back to that night with Kid Bruce and Martha. Martha shows Bruce pictures from a scrapbook, arriving at the one of Bruce and his friends. She says despite it being taken just moments before tragedy, she likes it because being hopeful isn't easy. And that picture makes her hopeful. It reminds her how Thomas always stayed hopeful, and he was at his most hopeful about Bruce.
I lied about the pigs. My favorite thing wasn't when they loved it. Nah. The best was when they fought, when they struggled right up until the end, when they never believed the bolt could come, when they thought they could win. The scream they made, that shriek, best sound in the world.
Did it sound anything like this?
As the bat ears flip forward and Batman stabs them into Roman's eyes as Roman lets out a guttural. Batman gives Roman a life jacket and then drags him to the edge of the yacht as Roman mutters,
You fucking lunatic. You will lose everything. Everything you love, I promise you. You have no idea what you've started.
Batman throws him into the water. Suspension of disbelief. Roman isn't dead. A double lobotomy does not kill you in the absolute universe. That's just... accept it, please. I'm so tired of people using this as evidence for Bruce breaking his no-kill rule. He didn't. He didn't. Roman is actively talking in the scene after this. Back to Martha and Gordon, the masked men argue amongst themselves about who they should kill, with them having reservations about gunning down a woman. They decide to just kill Gordon and split the money until Martha interjects, saying that she already saw their faces before they put on the masks, so they might as well kill her. She gives one last plea, though, telling them that they are better than this. They raise their guns with a, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wayne, I am." At that moment, Bruce sets off the explosives, blowing up the yacht in the server room that the party animal masks ran off of. Bruce plummets into the water below. The masked men all stop as the bounty on everyone drops to 0 alongside a system failure message. One of the men take off their mask. Does that mean there's no money? Martha punches him and then hugs Gordon. Bruce continues to fall deeper into the water below as we hear Martha continue her speech about hope.
Bruce, before you go to sleep, I want you to know I'm proud of you. What you went through, you'd have every right to say to hell with it all, live angry or afraid. But that's not who you are. The way you got back out there with your friends, what you said to Jim at the funeral. Because the other thing you can do when bad things happen is use the pain to be even more determined, more hopeful. You wear the pain like a damn cape, and you work every day to stop those bad things from ever happening again. That's how you win against the nightmares. How you win against all of it, always. Did I do it right?
The Batmobile drives beneath Bruce, scooping him up as we get one final bat fact. Bats live long lives. Alfred drags Bruce into the Batmobile.
Kid. If I'm sticking around, so are you. Now, let's get you patched up.
Going back to that 2-page spread at the start of the issue, despite me talking about how unnerving it could be in retrospect, I think that it is a reminder that through all this darkness, it is important to remember that this is a story about hope. Batman doesn't work without hope. The entire concept of superheroes doesn't work without hope. Integral to this story is a genuine belief that tomorrow can be better. This is fighting back against the last era of superhero media, which was trying so desperately to be realistic. But I ask, what is more realistic than superhero media? It's people waking up every day and choosing to fight for a better world. What's more realistic than that? We get one final page titled Epilogue. The Joker, a sickly pale, draped in this cloak of what appears to be flesh babies, is informed that Roman failed in Gotham. Joker reaches out his hand, regaining a normal coloring as the babies around it lose their color. He points forward. Get Bane. Now this is a real introduction to Absolute Joker. We get that sickly pale skin, the green hair, accents of red, everything you would expect from the Joker. The face we saw before is just the mask, which, again, we specifically know that this is supposed to resemble mainline Bruce Wayne. So, to me, it kind of plays into that idea of which one's the real mask, Batman or Bruce Wayne.
Now, while I think that's a silly question when it comes to Batman, and I think it really misunderstands how secret identities work and how people work in different contexts, but that's besides the point. I really like it here because rich people are not really people, are they? Absolute Joker is a businessman. This is a fake smile that he puts on just to make the deal, hiding the monster underneath. We're even told right away he has multiple aliases, different identities he's crafted just to make deals and to serve whatever purpose it needs to. The person we saw before is a fake person that he crafted just to serve his own goals. What we see right now is the real thing, covered in babies. Now, while I think it's easy to write this off as just a creepy Joker thing, rich people just do this, right? Brian Johnson is a multimillionaire who gets regular blood transfusions from his own son to maintain his youth in a project he has dubbed Project Blueprint. Genuinely, my first time reading this, I think I just made that connection right away because it is so eerily similar to me that I just assumed that this flesh coat is Joker's kids, which later on in this series, there's more evidence to that. To rich people, everything just has to be property. I think that's the only way they could rationalize the world, or I'm not going to try and break down the psychology of rich people. I'm normal. I don't think I can get into that headspace. But their children are no exception. It's just more property they own to them. The idea that taking your child's blood can make you younger is proof of that. They see these kids as just an extension of themselves, an exterior blood bank that they can just withdraw from. Like their children's blood is just more of their blood, but younger. I think there's also a subtle misogyny to just ignoring the mother of the child. It's not your clone. That's not how genetics work. Now, I feel very strongly about this whole Brian Johnson story because a few years ago when this first got shared around, people just said it was kind of creepy and then moved on. But I think the implications are a lot darker. Brian Johnson's son was 17 when this first started. When I donated blood at 17, I needed parental approval. So I'm assuming Brian Johnson is signing off on his son donating a fifth of the blood in his body. Double what I donated, by the way. Brian Johnson is signing off on this when he is the one benefiting? How is this allowed? This is so obviously unethical. This is disgusting, and we've also discussed money as a means of control. How do you think that factors into the child of a rich person? Brian has the ability to just not give his son any inheritance when he dies. Not that he's planning on ever dying, because clearly this is a bid at him trying to become immortal, because that's what we're doing now. But Brian's son has been raised in this world of wealth, and Brian just has the ability to push him down the social hierarchy like it's nothing. Brian's son is dependent on his father to maintain his quality of life. Brian's son said that he's cool with the whole donating blood thing in an interview, but to me that doesn't remove the implications here. It doesn't make this whole thing feel any less disgusting, because at the end of the day, I think Brian's kid has as much say as one of those flesh babies. And if that's what they're willing to do to their own children, what do you think the rich would hesitate to take from you? Also did a little research into how Brian Johnson made his millions. It's from his company Braintree, which has a vague description everywhere I looked, which is super shady, but the most I could gather is that Brian Johnson seems to be Mr. Microtransaction. You know, a system which is pretty well known for being openly predatory towards its consumers, so that's fun. Issue 15's preview just came out at the time of recording this, and so I'm gonna add on unscripted that we just learned that Joker apparently made a large chunk of his wealth through investing in online gaming spaces. So is Brian Johnson just the Joker? In the 8th grade, my history teacher told my class that every generation had their big problem to solve, and that it was looking like for us, our problem was going to be global warming, that we were going to have to grow up and figure out the solution. And I can't help but say that it filled me with this excitement and this weird pride. We had a responsibility as a generation, and we were going to do it. We were going to earn our place in the history books. In my junior year of high school, I had a history teacher who told me almost the exact same thing, verbatim. By that point, scientists had said that global warming was irreversible about 3 or 4 times, that we had gone past the point of no return again and again. Global warming was never our problem to solve. It was pushed onto us by people who procrastinated the issue. I think it's fair to say we have been dealt an unfathomably shit hand. I've seen the consensus that Gen Z just never thinks anything good will ever happen again. And they've decided to just live like zombies, going through the motion as the world slowly ends around them. Before I recorded this, I saw that a friend made her Instagram note, we need a second meteor. You know, like what wiped out the dinosaurs, we need another extinction event. And truly, it is here. People like talking about like, oh, humanity is like the biggest threat to Earth. No, it's rich people. Rich people are a natural disaster on a scale and magnitude that we have never seen. Draining the Earth of all its resources and then picking the bones clean just for no reason. Just to justify their own existence. But I genuinely believe that we're going to do what those dinosaurs didn't. And I mean that both in the literal dinosaurs and baby boomers, old people. I was really proud of that. We are going to find a way forward. I don't know how. Part of me does wish that these comics, Absolute Batman, just laid like the groundwork. Give me step by step. How do we fix the world? And I think it is. I think it does, but it is reminding us to not get too ahead of ourselves. Absolute Batman's first arc is very good at establishing the stakes of what we're up against. The rich, what they're doing to us, what they're trying to do. But the ending of issue 5 and issue 6 really interests me because, you know, it has built the stakes, what we're up against. But Batman does not win. Batman does not defeat the bad guy. He doesn't really beat Black Mask because Black Mask is just a pawn. And the goal was just to distract from Arkham being constructed, which it's done. They did it. Batman lost. But that's not the point. The victory at the end is that Batman still finds it in himself to hope. They want us to give up. They want us to distrust each other, which means at the end of the day, if you want to, you know, lash back at the world, kind of rebel, it starts with you hoping that things can get better. Because if they don't want you to do that, then that is defiant action. It is very hard to find the strength to hope. There isn't really any evidence. There's nothing to go off of for why we should. But in a weird logic, I think that if we can find it within ourselves to keep hoping, then that's all the evidence we need. Because if we can find it within ourselves to keep hoping, that means somebody else can find it. And if we're all hoping on a better future, then we're gonna try to get it. We're going to do something about it. And frankly, we already are. But I think one of the things I want to get across with this video is, like, I feel like I am part of this group of Gen Z that has been thrusted into adulthood and feels like we've been put right on the front lines of this battle. And We don't want to be here, but we're also antsy to, get in there, to make the world better. But we have to start with hoping. We're gonna fail a lot until we succeed, but that's part of it. We have to find the strength to just keep failing. We have to try. We have to try a lot of different shit. If you want my genuine advice on what we should be doing right now, it is fostering community. I've talked a lot about how they want us to be scared of one another, and that is because, people power of the people. We have the numbers advantage. So they try to make us scared of each other. And frankly, it has worked. I have severe social anxiety. Dan, I'm frankly scared to post this video. I'm scared to go outside after this and someone's gonna be like, you posted that Batman video, huh? And shoot me. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But the day after this video is posted, I'm gonna try. My book club is slowly becoming a mutual aid group, and I'm gonna pitch some ideas. I'm gonna try and make my town better. It starts on. We have to start on a small scale, which sucks. It really sucks, but that's our job as a generation. It is not global warming. It is to save everyone. And we are not earning our place in the history books. We are making sure that there are still history books. But I truly think we can do it. We're going to be crazier than they ever were. And we're going to fix the world. I just want to thank everybody for watching. Genuinely, if you've made it this far, I appreciate it so much. That means the world to me, genuinely. I put a lot of effort into this one. This one's taken a while. I think I started writing this 6 months ago, so if you guys could subscribe. Oh, also, if people could follow my Instagram, cw.tucker. I'm trying to get 3,306 followers so that I have one more than somebody from my high school who's trying to be a Republican politician, because I want to shit talk him on Maine. If I hit it and it's clear it's because of this video, I'll draw Absolute Batman beating the shit out of him. He's a real bad guy. I guess I'll take this time to thank my backers. I don't have a Patreon, but I want to thank my friends because they have my back. Garrett Barstad, who did the voice of Batman, Prince Jones, who did the voice of Alfred, Max Harwood, who did the voice for Roman, Uriel Villa for the voice of Hill, and Sophia Crouch for the voice of the little kid who got dropkicked. She did a really good job. Oh, and then my mom, who voiced Martha. So, thank you all. I really appreciate everyone who has supported me through making this, because it has been a lot. It's been hard. God, I hope this makes some money. Okay, bye.